Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Just for full disclosure, I do get a paycheck for Progressive Victory. However, they're not paying for tonight's content. Why would they? And you'll find out why they would not in a bit. We are going to be talking tonight about Donald Trump. Ever since he came down the escalator, way back in 2014, 2015, he has fundamentally, right, reshaped the discourse. He has had a large effect on the Republican Party. And the question is, has that been a positive or a negative force, right? Are the Republicans of today better than they were before Donald Trump, or are they worse? We're going to talk about that. We're going to get into it. I've assembled a team. Thank you for being here. Thank you to my guests. Thank you to my audience. Let's get this party started. And we're going to start with Admiral Gibbs. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's absolutely clear to me that Donald Trump has been a boon for the Republican Party. I wasn't on board with Donald Trump originally. I wasn't my favorite guy, wasn't my original candidate, but it is clear to me that he is an absolute boon for the Republican Party. He's been fantastic, wonderful, great, the greatest, some might say, if you know. It's very clear to me the reason why he's the greatest is because he's shown the blatant hypocrisy and traitorous behavior that the Dems are willing to do to stay in power. And it's just so good to see somebody that's an outsider that really truly loves America standing up for America against the evil, traitorous Democrats who want to destroy America.
Okay, well, subtlety. Thy name is Gibbs. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you. We'll see how we do. Next up, a returning guest on my show. He didn't hate it the first time, so he's back again. Hutch, please go ahead.
I don't know what else to say in the intro besides, the question that I want to ask my conservative counterparts is, a couple questions really. Is number one, how are you defining success? And number two, when you look at the state of the Republican Party, do you feel like it is now in better shape or worse shape than it was in 2016? To me, the answer I'm a little biased, but to me, when I look from the outside looking in, the answer is quite clear. But those are the two questions that I want to ask my counterparts. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for being here, and we will get to it in the open. Thanks for, next up, no stranger to my channel, Josiah, whose channel is popping off, pondering politics. Give us what you got. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious how you define success too, but obviously we'll get into that. By my estimation, I think Donald Trump has been an abject failure for both the Republican Party and the country as a whole. He won in 2016, despite losing the popular vote. So he's never won a popular vote against a Democratic candidate. That may change in 2024, but who knows? He presided over defeats in 2018, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. He's being out fundraised by the Democrats and by Joe Biden. He's facing 88 criminal charges. It's not good, in my opinion. I think he's bad long-term for both the party and the country.
Well, thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll get into it when we get into the open. Next up, again, no stranger to my show, Lauren De Laguna. Please, what do you got?
I think that it's a mixed bag. I think Donald Trump is good for the Republican Party in many aspects. However, due to his cavalier attitude and how highly controversial it is, he had a target painted on his back. So a lot of the things that are brought up as negatives about him by Democrats or by people who are neutral in the conservative party are things such as the 88 criminal charges. But how did he gain those 88 criminal charges? In my opinion, it's because he's widely disliked, and so people are prosecutors in particular are basing their runs on going after Trump and criminally prosecuting him, and like the whole Russian hoax scandal. And even though it was Hillary the entire time, she sucked people after him to pursue him criminally. So it's really unfortunate, because I think that he would have done a lot of great things for the country had it not been for a lot of the distractions. So yeah, it's a mixed bag.
Well, we'll get into it in the open. Lauren De Laguna coming out with "It's the Clintons' fault." Fair enough. Let's get to the next guest I have. One of my new favorites, right? An up-and-comer in the scene. Rashad Crenshaw, please.
I firmly believe the rise of Trump has been probably one of the worst things to happen to the Republican Party in the last decade or so. I think the damage he's done is extensive. I mean, if we look at what's going on right now with the RNC, I mean, this man literally cleaned it completely out and is basically planning to replace everyone in it with Trump loyalists. Competence be damned, experience be damned, knowledge be damned. And this has been the same narrative we've heard as it pertains to Washington. I'm going to drain the swamp of expertise, of knowledge, of experience, and replace it with people who are completely loyal to him. And that's just one of many things Trump has engaged in that is completely damaging the Republican Party. So I'll get further into it as the debate goes on. But yes, I believe Donald Trump has been a massive disaster to the Republican Party.
Okay, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. And last but certainly not least, someone who hasn't been on my show in a while, but we're glad to have him back, Rob Knorr. Go ahead.
Thank you. First, full disclosure, I am not paid by Progressive Victory PAC. I'm one of those weird right-wingers that don't sell out for a couple shekels. So happy to be here. Yeah, it's actually, I have to agree with Hutch and pondering both. How do you define success? Are we talking about success for Republican parties getting victory? Or are we talking about success for the good of the country? Or are we talking about success in driving the Republican Party to a place that'll be better in the next generation? So there's certainly things I dislike about Donald Trump. I make criticism of him all the time. For me, my issue isn't any individual politician. It's more of a two-tier system of justice that we have in our intel agencies and unelected bureaucrats that really run the show. As Gibbs said, Trump did a phenomenal job of exposing that, but did not do a very good job of actually draining that swamp by putting people that were sycophantal around himself that didn't accomplish that. However, he was very good for the country, and he's very good for exposing the uniparty and the old school Republicans. People talk about, well, Republicans are getting less victories, right? Because they're self-sabotaging, because people like Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan hate their own constituents, and they would rather lose elections and sabotage Trump and sabotage people that are considered populist because they're outsiders than they would win and lose control over their own party. So in general, I think although there are many fair criticisms of Trump, the country was far better off with him running it than Joe Biden. And he's actually taking the country in a direction where even if left-wingers were smart, they would understand that now is a key time for them to have potential to get sort of the old guard Democrats, the corporatist Democrats that don't give a shit about any of the lefties either. Now would be a good time to try to move that way and get those people out of control of their party as well.
Okay, thanks for that, and I'm sure we'll get into the thing. Okay, so let's talk about the success, right? Let's talk about it, and I think there's a few ways we can go about this, and there's three different things I want to hit on here. I want to start though with for the Republican Party itself, right? Is it better under Trump? Why or why not? Go ahead.
Absolutely not. It's not better under Trump. I mean, we've seen constant losses for the Republican Party ever since January 6th, which has been the most embarrassing moment of Trump's entire presence in politics. Republicans have been dragging their feet in the mud ever since January 6th, and I think a lot of it can be linked to Trump. Even the candidates that Trump has endorsed have been struggling. The idea that the Republican Party is somehow doing a great job is false. We also look at what happened with Roe v. Wade. The overturning of Roe v. Wade landed a significant blow against people's interest in voting Republican. And that came about as a result of the Supreme Court justices that Trump put in power. So when we talk about Trump benefiting the Republican Party, we can talk about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We can talk about what's going on right now with the RNC, where he's completely cleaning out an institution and replacing it with henchmen and cronies and goons to basically be loyal to him.
Who was the leader of the Republican Party prior to Trump that was successful for Republicans?
Mitch McConnell.
Bush.
So because they can get in.
Yes,
Bush.
literally, yes.
Bush.
So McConnell wasn't a presidential candidate, but we could say he was the de facto leader. That's true. But when it comes to the executive branch and leaders, every single person that Republicans have put up was more of an abysmal failure if you're just looking at a win-loss record than Donald Trump. Bush was worse.
No,
McCain was worse. Romney was worse.
Wait, how was Bush worse?
But Trump has never
W.
won.
I'm a big fan.
Hold on,
Can you let Rob clarify?
yeah, one at a time. Rob, what do you mean by worse? Go ahead.
When Bush left office in 2008, the Republican Party was in shambles. His handling of the Iraq War and the 2008 financial crisis showed to the people of this country that he was not representative of the constituents of the GOP and made him massively unlikable and the GOP in the eyes of independents and moderates.
I feel like you can make the same argument about Trump, but worse. At the very least, George W. Bush won re-election. He had the best midterm performance of any first-term president in like 100 fucking
And Republicans swamped in President Obama's first midterms, if I remember correctly, too. So
because Obama sucked. But that's generally what happened.
That's your interpretation of the result,
right? What she inherited.
Yeah, but the result, I don't think it's congruent with what you said because, as Hutch points out, so Bush won election, he won re-election. His Republican Party performed particularly well, especially with the patriotic aftermath, or like the surge of patriotism after 9/11. Even after Bush left office, you say the party was in shambles, but they won midterm elections during Obama's presidency, which is pretty good, right, for them. Even if So
But you could say the same of. Granted, they didn't win the Senate, but they won the House midterms here in 2020. The point I'm trying to make, I'll be brief here. The point I'm trying to make here is usually what you see is when you had a sort of unique situation like the attacks on 9/11, there was a wave of patriotism. George Bush wasn't a good president, but that wave rode him to victory in 2004. Then when it became evident that things weren't as they seemed, it started to go downhill. You do see that when presidents are unpopular on either party, they tend to have their party lose the midterms. But I don't think that's exclusively because of Donald Trump or because George Bush was somehow better. The point I'm trying to make is the Republicans weren't doing stellar before Trump, and that's just a question of wins losses. If you get to actually representing the beliefs of their constituents, the Republicans are abysmal because they, for years, under the leadership of Boehner, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, do not give a shit about the whims of their constituents.
Yeah, so I won't dispute the fact that George W. Bush was a terrible president.
Yeah, that was just quickly my point.
No, he was a fantastic president. But
let's just clarify what's good for the Republican Party, because it's funny that you listed one of the negatives of Trump winning was Roe v. Wade was overturned because that made it harder to win elections. But it's just what Republicans care about is having our agendas met, and that is something that many conservatives care about, is saving the lives of children, innocent babies, because we're good people, unlike liberals. And so we are at least getting our agendas met under Trump in a way that we weren't getting our agendas met.
What do you need to accomplish your agenda, Lauren? What do you need to accomplish your agenda?
I mean, he was very successful. Oh, hold on. He was very successful.
I asked Lauren a question real quick, if you don't mind. What do you have to do?
You do need a win. So I understand
that's
what
right.
you're saying,
So he lost in 2018, he lost in 2020, he lost in 2021, he lost in 2022, he lost in 2023. You're the dog that caught the car with Roe v. Wade. You've lost abortion referendums in Kansas and Kentucky. It's been one L after another. The Republican alphabet is 26 L's.
That's fake news. Let me tell you why. One, first of all, let me take off these shades so I can see clearly through all these lies that you're telling.
Put your fucking Mando helmet on.
Yeah,
first
of all,
let him go. Let him go.
First of all, you're talking about the abortion thing like it's a loss. Don't be mad because Trump was able to stack the Supreme Court with conservative justices that are going to influence policy for decades. That's the biggest ass whooping the libs have taken in decades. I mean, they got a Supreme Court that's ruling left and right in favor. They all just lost.
Just right. It's just ruling right.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Right.
They just want. In fact, even the libs on the Supreme Court went and voted 9-0 that just recently for Donald Trump. You know what we call that one from? Country ass whooping. That's what y'all just took on that one. Now he's going on all the ballots, even after y'all tried to do this treasonous behavior. Y'all mentioned January.
He still has to win the election. He still has to win the election, Admiral. Actually, no, I'm not even calling you Admiral.
Hold on. You gotta let Gibbs finish. Gibbs, finish your thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, y'all mentioned January 6th earlier. Well, you know what? He was also able to stop this BLM insurrection that popped up, which is what that was. That was an actual insurrection where there was
Donald
violence.
Trump stopped it?
Yeah, we stopped it. He stopped it. We had troops move, all sorts of stuff. We stopped crime. It was good things. And then
you stopped crime? Crime skyrocketed when Trump was in office.
It has skyrocketed because of liberal policies. And
it's plummeted under Biden. It skyrocketed.
Trump has shown the clear divide in America where you have minorities now wanting to vote more for Trump than ever before. The African Americans are voting for Trump in larger numbers than ever before. We have Arab Americans.
Where do they vote for Trump?
They're voting.
Wait, so wait a minute. So
recent
so
polling.
Gibbs,
For
you
Trump
can't
over
filibuster.
any other
Yeah,
conservative.
they're all saying.
So Gibbs, you can't filibuster, sweetheart.
Hold on,
You
hold
can't
on.
I'm not
filibuster.
filibustering. I'm not filibustering.
You
I'm
got to
just
be
saying,
concise, though,
I'm
Gibbs.
addressing
Finish
all,
up quickly. We do want to
I'm
respond.
addressing all the lies they just said. I waited till everybody went. And so here's the thing. He did well in the last election with all these minorities, better than ever before. And then he exposed the treasonous behavior that the Democrats are pushing along the southern border and giving all this money to all these other countries while letting us eat shit down here in the South.
I think it needs to be said that you're saying he did well in 2022 when we're talking about the worst performance for an opposition party in an entire generation, in like 60 years. The Republicans did worse during the 2022 midterms than any other
And yet they still gained
party.
seats, didn't they? They still gained seats.
You're talking about real quick. I just want to just real quick. Like when Obama faced his first set of midterms, we were still coming out of this massive economic crash that endangered like the global economy, and that in concert with passing the ACA cost him politically, and he lost what was it, like 50 seats or something like that?
Yeah.
You had the Republican Party in 2022 that were up against the Democrats, who were presiding over a massive period of inflation, the largest inflation that we've seen since the 80s. In conventional political,
Biden was underwater.
Conventional, and he had low approval ratings.
Yeah.
Conventional political wisdom would tell you that the Republicans should have fucking slaughtered.
If I could jump in real
Democrats, and
quick,
they got like a 7-seat majority.
They didn't,
That's
but-
not a good. And we hold on, and I'm almost done. And we picked up a seat in the Senate. That is not a good midterm performance. That is not success.
Yeah, that red wave was more of like a pinkish trickle.
Right, and let me I'll actually back you two
Yeah.
up on that. It is disingenuous to say that the Republicans didn't massively underperform in 2022. It was based on what you're saying there, Hutch. It should have been a bigger wave. Now the question is Trump to blame for that wave not being achieved, or are there other factors? But I will concede that I don't think you could spin 2022, even though they picked up the House, which they did, but you can't spin that as a victory for the GOP. You
Sure, we can. We
I'm
gained seats.
not, well, you can, but I'm not going to because I'm interested in.
Even Rob's like, I'm dipping. But and to be also to be fair to Rob too, in all seriousness.
Well,
and I think that
after
Rashad-
pondering, after Josiah, we're gonna go to Lauren,
Yeah.
and then we'll.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, just call me Josiah. So, and also to throw a bone to Rob in good faith, when he says like, how much of this can you attribute to Trump? I'm not going to say that the totality of a president's or a presidential candidate's success or failures are entirely attributable to them. So I think that's fair. But it happened on his watch when he was leader of the party, and many of the candidates that he endorsed lost as a result of that because they were seen as too extreme, despite the favorable terrain for it. Before I throw it over to Lauren again to address some of the things that Gibbs said. So listen, Gibbs, can you remind me who was president in 2020? It was Donald Trump. So the reason I ask that is because I very often run into Republicans who don't understand how time works. And so when you say that,
like Biden,
that crime, bro,
like
listen, he's a sprightly 81-year-old man, okay, well-meaning with memory issues.
Very good memory, very strong.
But in 2020, Donald Trump was president, and crime skyrocketed when Donald Trump was president. Those BLM protests that you were complaining about, that you often say like destroy the country, that happened on Donald Trump's watch.
The insurrection,
as well.
the violent insurrection.
Right. So crime has plummeted in calendar year 2023. We're seeing a course correction under Biden.
True.
So
Okay, I did want to toss it to Lauren.
True?
She was trying to get in for a minute. I want to get.
I'm sorry about that, Lauren.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I think that it's hard for me to spin the midterm elections as a win for conservatives. I look at Carrie Lake, for instance. Everyone thought she was going to win. You look at just everyone in Arizona lost. Everyone who we anticipated. But then again, I think there's other factors that aren't YouTube friendly, that are more Rumble friendly to say, that are not Donald Trump related, other than people hating Donald Trump so much that they're willing to do things in order to have elections not go his way, if you get what I'm saying. I just do not.
Oh my God.
It's hard to
spin example of what I'm talking about.
Exactly. Thank you
It's
for
a prime example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but you got to be careful.
This man has poisoned the democracy of this nation. This man has poisoned the minds of his followers. It's crazy.
I like the money on my channel.
It's not poison. The fact that you look at the bellwether election, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to skip past that because I can't even talk about that without.
I would let you
What
again,
are you
but
talking about?
I can't get.
There's a risk that he'll be demonetized. That's what she's saying.
yeah.
I think it's so funny. People actively worked against Donald Trump. So, for instance, even as Donald Trump tried to be tougher on crime in some aspects during you pointed out skyrocketing crime in 2020 when COVID happened, when defund the police happened. These were all liberal policies. And also prosecutors that were in liberal cities. It was as if they were actively working against the Trump administration. And there's so many cases of this. There's so many DAs.
You guys don't get to
who
blame
just
Biden for.
who did not prosecute. Who
I
just
absolutely
refused? Like, for
So police
instance,
was police defunded, Lauren, in calendar year 2020? No. So
It's
I don't know what
not
you're
just
talking
the
about.
defunding of the
about
police. It's
whether or
also
not they were defunded. There was like
Isn't
actual.
Joe Biden the same
police-
presidential candidate that at one point
Let-
like
you guys-
What about the
enforced-
district
Let her finish. Let her
attorney?
get
For
through her
instance,
spiel, and then
the
you can respond. I
Suffolk-
promise.
The Suffolk County District Attorney had a list of 10 crimes that Rachel Rollins, she legitimately just refused to prosecute. And there were and then there was Bodine in San Francisco, and then there was the Garcon in LA. There were prosecutors all over America who are actively just promoting the increase of crime, and then you're just going to spin that and turn it around on Trump. Now, there was things that Trump did that I think that somewhat encouraged crime. Like, for instance, I think, what was it, First Step Act or something, where he released a lot of prisoners on the basis that they wouldn't recommit if they took a first step in fixing whatever it was that their issue was, and they were like so there was some soft on crime in some policies, but in many other areas he was exceedingly tough on crime. For instance, the border, wanting to build a wall. And what do we have? We have so many people coming into this country committing crimes and crimes against each other, which a lot of them are then not even reporting. And then also the Biden administration, do you think they're reporting crimes against each other, like crimes? They are housing illegal aliens. Do you think those illegal aliens
Okay,
are
so
able to
I'm bringing this
report?
back to actually what we're talking
There's
about.
just
So
so
number one,
many
I didn't
issues.
blame Trump for the rise in crime. I was correcting Gibbs about a fact that on Donald Trump, under his watch, under his administration, crime skyrocketed. Now, you can say that there's no causal relationship there.
Not
You
true.
need to make
It
that
is
case.
true.
That's not
But
true.
it is a fact
It's
that it
unequivocally not true.
skyrocketed in 2020.
That's not true.
That's
Let me
it.
ask you this: so for example, if we look at violent crime in 2018, we had 1,390,000 and change. 2009, 1,333,000. And then when we get to 2016, when Trump came into office that year, we had 1,259,000. Trump's first year, we had a precipitous drop to 1,230,000. The next year, another precipitous drop, 1,221,000. The next year, an even more substantial drop to 1.19 million. Then we do have an uptick in 2020 to 1.269. The following 2 years, the first 2 year under Biden, there's a slight drop to 1.25 and then a drop to 1.23. Both of those numbers are higher than Trump's first two years in term. What happened in 2020 that made it different? Well, even though police may not have technically being defunded, we had multiple things that were going on. We had COVID. And please, let me finish. We had COVID. Then we had actually left-wing people that were saying over and over that police should be defunded, which was causing the dissuasion of police forces actually trying to interrupt crime because they were on constant fear that they would become the next person that would be, broadcast on national TV and lose their life. The Democrats ran on defunding the police and the police are evil, which
No, they did not.
Please,
Absolutely
let me
did.
finish.
No, they did not.
Notice how I'm quiet when everyone else is talking, which led to them then having predictable results in these cities where violent crime spiked because they told their police not to interact with those people. And then the left-wingers that were rioting and committing all this violent crime magically stopped once Biden got into office. All of a sudden then it wasn't mostly peaceful riots and things like that in places like Seattle where they went to the governor's mansion. They actually sent the feds in to stop them. We're being told that and by the way, I'm with you, Lauren. I don't trust the damn statistics anyways. We're being told simultaneously by the state of New York, Mayor Adams is saying violent crime's going down, everything's good. And yet they're deploying the National Guard to subways for people that are violating turnstiles. And the very people that told us it would be an act of fascism for Donald Trump to deploy the National Guard to start violent left-wing rioters that were using fire bombs to try to kill people and break into the White House, which I'll bet not a fucking one of you spoke up against. You were okay with that insurrection, weren't you? But when Donald Trump and Tom Cotton inspect an op-ed in the New York Times saying we should deploy the National Guard to stop these violent people, all of a sudden the writers at the New York Times said, we're going to quit. You can't do that. They had to remove the op-ed. The entire Democrat narrative was, how dare you in an act of fascism deploy the National Guard? Now Biden makes it a staple to have the National Guard out in front of Washington. Now we have the National Guard, but at the same time, you're spinning the message to us, but trust us, violent crimes down. It's absolute bullshit, and anyone who lives in one of these cities can tell
okay,
you.
so listen,
anybody can pull up FBI crime statistics. Anybody can just Google it right now.
Further away from the base of this topic.
He just literally
FBI
just did that.
statistics are known for being
So the point is they don't trust the statistics, but it doesn't matter because in that screed, Rob admitted that crime did have an uptick in 2020, which is the only thing I disputed. I don't know why we spent so much time on that.
You all said that there was an uptick under Trump, implying that over his term there was an uptick, but there was far less on average year, far less violent crime during Trump than there'll probably end up being under Biden, and
so
certainly under Obama,
that we
Bush,
said that
and
crime
going back.
spiked under Trump was because Trump was president in 2020, which is contrary to what Gibbs's claim was. So now we spent 15 minutes on a single minor, completely uncontroversial point, which is that in 2020, crime spiked under Trump. That's it. That's the only thing I said. It should have been like, yeah.
Well, you can see this. Well, you can see this real quick. It looks like the average of the 4 years under Trump, so far the statistics we have, it looks close, or that Biden's average crimes will be slightly higher than those of Trump.
I'm sure overall they are comparable.
Back to the topic, though. Back to the topic. Why has it been good for Republicans? Ask any Republican or any Democrat. If you go out and just ask the average Joe how their groceries are looking, how their gas prices are looking, and people go, "Oh, Biden economics. Oh, we got so many more jobs." Well, sure, you got more jobs after y'all shut down the whole country, took everybody's jobs, and got more. The economy's doing way worse by every statistic. Like we can go
by every statistic. See, this is the thing. You're conflating. Public perception. Public perception on the economy with the macroeconomic data associated with it.
Every stat is worse, and then the one stats that are good.
You say every stat is worse. What about rate of inflation? Well, hold on.
Hold on. Rate of is higher. It's higher.
Give it a minute.
It's higher than under Trump.
What about rate of inflation?
Hold on. Both of you stop. Oh my God, I can't hear a word either one of you are saying. So please, one at a time.
Yeah, so
Gibbs, finish, and then we're going to go to Hutch to respond.
Sure,
please.
I'll be quick here. So it's pretty simple. The only ones that they keep pointing to is rate of inflation, which is still lower under Trump. And then we want to talk about job gain, which whenever people are working 3 jobs because the Dems shut down thousands of small businesses nationwide, cost people their livelihoods, and then they go, "Oh, wow, now you work 3 jobs working for DoorDash, Amazon, and another company just to make ends meet." It's pretty clear to the average person the economy's in the dog shit right now. All the prices of goods are way higher now than they were before, and it's just simple. People are tired of paying so much, so it's been a boon for the Republican Party because you can compare results.
Except it hasn't been a boon for the Republican Party because they've still lost elections. They've still lost elections in 2023, in 2022, in 2021. Even when Biden has been president, Republicans have not had meaningful gains. So this idea that it's a boon for the Republican Party, it may be in 2024. You may be correct because that election hasn't happened yet. But in terms of what elections have happened, you've been wrong.
I think it's funny because when we're talking about, I'll step back. I'll leave you go, Hutch.
I just want to say, are we all seriously trying to make the case that presidents are responsible for things like crime? Do we really believe that?
Or in the case of Gibbs, inflation. Somehow Biden is responsible for the inflation. It's funny you say that because when we talk about inflation, one of the biggest factors in inflation is the war in Ukraine, which your boy Trump has been really soft on. You want to talk about the cost of groceries and fuel? That war has impacted the prices of both of those things, and Trump has been playing softball for quite some time. In fact, Orban just left Trump's crib about a few days ago. He said, Trump will not be sending a single dollar to Ukraine. So as Putin is causing more economic strife globally and in Europe, thanks to his war in Ukraine, your boy Trump, according to Orban, is saying, I'm not going to give these people another dime. So it's funny you say that when we're going to be looking at an even stronger amount of inflation and global upheaval with Trump being in office if he gets in. So what do you say to that?
Well, I will say something to that. He shut down multiple pipelines that cost oil and natural gas to shoot up.
What
blaming him for this.
So we're supposed to continue funding the war, the war treasury of Russia. We're supposed to continue to just put money in their pocket.
The pipelines in on the United States.
The pipelines in Europe.
That doesn't make any sense, bro. You're
talking about the pipelines here. I thought you were talking about Nord Stream pipeline.
Oh, the one that the CIA allegedly blew up? I mean, like...
I want to pass the ball. Hold on, I want to pass the ball to Rob. Hold on. I want to pass the ball to Rob, then we're going to go to Lauren, and then we'll continue the discussion.
I'll be right back, but I'm listening.
We
please.
know from listening to Rashad the people that would have supported the Iraq war. I always find these ghoulish takes.
You're comparing Ukraine to
Actually,
Iraq?
please,
Are you
yes,
serious
I am.
right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
This
you
is
gotta let him.
ridiculous
Hold
bullshit.
on, stop. You gotta let him go for more than 2 seconds before we get into it, please, Rob.
The idea that we have to put the Ukrainian people through a meat grinder by sending them just enough weapons that hundreds of thousands of them could die over and over so we could feel more comfortably economically here is a fucking joke. Yes, it's absolutely a joke. And the reason that we're in this situation in the first place is because people played with fire. Even though I hate Putin and I hope Ukraine wins tomorrow, the truth is the United States and NATO continued to aggress knowing that there was a chance that this would upset Russia, and it has had predictable results, including us interfering in the elections in 2014 to replacing someone that was a president of Ukraine that was pro-Putin, was considered favorable to him, and then all of a sudden installing someone who was pro-Obama, which took one of their neighboring states and actually made them one of the most antagonistic towards Russia. In addition to that, NATO had moved nuclear weapons in 2009 to Turkey, roughly about 200 miles off the border of Russia. We also found out from a New York Times article that since 2014, we've actually had the CIA operating at least 20 bases in Ukraine, militaristically training them. So all of these things, even though I don't feel that Putin was justified, is an example of the very institutions that were out to get Trump escalating the tensions in these situations, and then you blame Trump and say, well, it's Trump's fault because he doesn't want to fuel these terrible policies. In addition, there's a couple other things to say. I'm sorry I'm speaking rapidly, but there's a lot of people talking a lot of points. I find it hilarious when all of a sudden people want to pick and choose what they blame presidents for. For example, we heard the fact that crime was brought up, I believe, unless I'm wrong, was brought up by Pondering First, that talked about crime rates being down, implying that when we're having a conversation about presidents, somehow providing the implications that somehow meant that Biden or Trump were responsible for those rates. The reason that Trump probably lost the election, in addition to all of the institutions colluding against him, including engaging in a coup using the FBI to wage war against him and spying on him. But the reason Trump lost the election was COVID, because people like you, I guarantee, blame Trump for COVID, when we could see when the Democrats came in, they didn't have any better plan. In fact, all they did was rely on the very vaccines that they said not to trust when Trump was trying to push the vaccines. More people died under the same time frame, despite the fact that the tool they used to fight COVID was already created under Donald Trump. But because Trump got blamed for COVID, that's largely what cost him the election. I will guarantee if I was on a panel with all of you in 2020, you wouldn't have been saying, how dare people blame Trump for COVID? It's an act of God. Clearly, it's not his fault. So look at all the other things around him. Because if we look at the economic data, the foreign policy data, and all of these other things, even people that didn't like Trump's personality, which there's a lot to dislike about him, actually incredibly enjoyed the country the way it was under Trump. Compare that to how we are under Biden, on the cusp of World War III, a border that's collapsing, fentanyl deaths through the roof, corruption out the wazoo, and the inflation going to the point where average people can't afford their rent or buy groceries anymore. And it's clear to see that the reason that all these losses are occurring is because Trump is seen as someone who's anti-institutional, and all of these institutions have colluded to make sure that we go back to the same uniparty.
Okay.
Okay, so
We gotta let people respond to that. We're gonna hold on.
So
We're
just-
gonna pass
yeah,
it to Pondering, then we're gonna pass it to Rashad, and then we're gonna go to
So real quick, number one, I also want to say that I too work with Progressive Victory. It shouldn't be a spoiler because I talk about it on my channel, but just in case those of you don't know, I work with Progressive Victory. Canvass with them, had a great time. Number one. Number two, I wasn't the one, from what I remember, who mentioned crime rate. It was in response to Gibbs saying that under Trump, crime dropped. I was actually saying. Right, so I was responding to that. Number three, in terms of blaming Trump for COVID, I don't blame him for COVID, but I do take issue with his response to COVID because he was the chief executive, and I think he had an obligation to rally the country together, to use the bully pulpit, to unite Republican governors and politicians to take the virus seriously. And I do think that his
how would that have helped anything? What's that look like?
Okay, so how about you know how you were talking and I didn't interrupt you, so show me the same courtesy, please, especially since we're buddies. So the other thing is the. God damn it, Rob! God damn it! This is what. Shut the fuck up. What was I saying?
You can get
unite the bully pulpit.
You were saying he could have used the bully pulpit to bring Republican governors together.
Right. So when facing a crisis like COVID, what Trump should have done was what George W. Bush did in the aftermath of 9/11, what FDR did during the Second World War, is try to use it as a unifying thing to unite the country. Democrats were willing to work with him with respect to COVID management. They helped pass his 2 COVID stimulus bills, even though it was an election year and he was going to get the credit for it. So clearly there was a spirit of bipartisanship from the Democrats. Trump didn't do that in terms of Biden's COVID response. He did have a plan because Trump's plan was to give it to the states. Biden actually created a federal program for vaccination rollout. The rates of vaccinations increased under his watch meaningfully from Trump's. He put a vaccination and testing site within 5 miles of 90% of the American people. And in terms of people dying at higher rates, that's because under Trump, the virus spread, number one, and the people who were disproportionately being infected and dying were Trump supporters in red states and red counties. So that's on Trump. That's not on Biden. And as far as the general,
unvaccinated
wait a minute. And as far as, did I lose something? Did my camera freeze?
No, you're good.
No,
Okay.
you're fine. Go, please.
One of the monitors kicked off. I'm sorry. And then the last thing I'll say is that in terms of what we blame or credit a president for, I agree that you can't pick and choose. You can't blame Biden for everything or Trump for everything. That's why I say we can't be too reductive. The president's the most powerful and influential person on earth, but I think it wouldn't be fair to blame Trump single-handedly for crime or Biden for inflation or anything like that. So I do agree there, but we're probably going to be using the stuff interchangeably just to be reductive to move the conversation along.
Can I ask a quick question? Just while you're still thinking on this. Prior to COVID, so Trump's country, regardless of how much praise or blame you're giving to Trump, 2019 United States, is that better than 2024 United States?
In what way?
In like most ways overall, economically, border security, foreign policy, wars around the world, fentanyl overdoses, take your pick. Overarchingly, was the country in a better place in 2019 pre-COVID under Donald Trump than it is in 2024 under Joe Biden?
I would say in certain ways, sure. I would say that there were fewer
overall
border contacts. I don't. I'd have to aggregate them and consider it, because also one of the differences too is again, since we're talking credit and blame, I'm not saying that you're doing this, Rob, but okay, let me ask you this. You talk about how we shouldn't blame or credit presidents, you shouldn't pick and choose. Did time begin when Donald Trump was inaugurated in January 2017?
No, and I don't think you heard me say.
No. I know. Well,
hang on. Choosing.
Well, I know you said we shouldn't pick and choose.
I want to make sure
you're doing.
I want to make sure that you're not doing that. So when you talk about the good things that happened under Trump, he didn't create all of that single-handedly, right? So he inherited things from Obama, good and bad, I'm assuming you would say, like the economy. You wouldn't give him full credit for the economy, even if you thought the economy was great on his watch, right?
If I could respond, if you give me 30 seconds to respond.
30 seconds, but then just real quick, we do need to get other people in.
I won't respond to his response. I won't respond to his response. He gets
the reason I asked you the question of, if we're not assigning any blame and we're just looking objectively at the year 2019 versus 2024, which year was better, anyone that's being objective can see things were better in 2019 prior to COVID. Then we could have a discussion about how much each president is responsible. But you're unwilling to even give that admission that things were better under 2019. The point I'm trying to make is, you could try to say that presidents are responsible for certain things, but what I'm saying is, while Trump was there, things were better. The country was going in a better direction. And so when people want to pick and choose the negatives of Trump, which they did, which cost Trump the election, and then say we shouldn't blame Trump or his party, which you all have been bragging about, they should have had a crushing wave against them, but they didn't, and they're still there and still control the majority of the party, or the power, and we see how bad things are going. Who else would we blame if not Democrats?
I mean, in addition to that, Republicans are very happy overall with Trump's foreign policy statements, right? People sit here. Well, we should be, and I'll tell you why. It's real hard for a Republican to sit here and stomach things like, "Oh, we're going to give $60 billion to Ukraine," whenever, and then nothing to the border. Whenever, we give a poison pill border bill that, and while we let these people stream in, we're going to give $300 million over to the Haiti, which is a situation that Biden enabled and allowed cannibals to take over the country. And then we're going to sit here and allow things like, we're going to allow Israel Palestine go to all shit. We're going to have the disastrous fiasco in Afghanistan. Like, Biden's foreign policy is just total dog shit, right? And Trump has sat here and called out and said, "Hey, NATO, y'all need to carry y'all's fair share. Hey, Ukraine, why are we sending money over there when we need to fix the border?" He's just said America first, and the Republicans are very much behind these things, which has unified the Republican Party in a certain aspect in regards to
we gotta let other people in. We gotta let other people in. Let's go to Rashad, then Hutch. That's the order we're gonna go in. Rashad, Hutch, then Laura.
Can I just say one thing?
No, hold on, shut up.
One thing really quick.
I'm speaking.
No. I just want to say one thing really quick. I just want to say one.
It is Women's History Month.
Amen.
It is Women's History
You know,
Month. I'm
Just because
sorry. We gotta go to
just
Lauren.
because it's relating to, I've been waiting a minute. I just want to say this one thing really quick. So I just wanted to double check some of the facts that were previous led. So top 5 states of people who died of Rhode Island by of coronavirus by population: Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New
Why would you
York,
do
Vermont.
population and
Then
per
we have
capita?
Alaska,
Why would you do
California,
total
Connecticut,
population instead of per
Illinois,
capita?
Maine, District of Yeah, this is per capita.
Oh, you said
This is
total
per
population.
capita.
Sorry.
Rhode
Go ahead.
This is per 1 million population. So you do it, but it's per capita. Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New York, Vermont, then Alaska, California, Connecticut, Illinois, Maine, District of Columbia. Those were the top 10. This is so you're just
So yeah, I'm sure you scribbled a list together on your WordPad, but it's actually Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas, West Virginia,
Yes.
Mississippi, Wyoming, Tennessee.
Where are you getting this list? When I look
She
it up right
wrote
now,
it. She pulled
got
up
it
a
from
Microsoft
World
Word
Honors.
document, typed it out. She
Hold
went to
on. No, I went
r/Donald on
to-
Reddit.
Let me tell me, because you're afraid. Are you afraid for me to tell you the facts?
No,
It's
because you're wrong. But
Worldometers.
Go ahead.
You are wrong.
info
You are wrong.
/coronavirus/country/US, and then I did it by then I sorted by deaths by 1 million population.
I'm getting completely
For the
different
highest
numbers.
death-
You are
so
not.
I'm going to
How are
say,
you going to
if I can
the coronavirus counter from the
wait.
beginning? I have consistently used the same website so that no one could say that I've been consistently using Worldometers.
I'll put it in the chat. How do I put it? How do I put it in the chat?
Coronavirus
There.
/country /US. It's a reputable site.
Stop
Rhode
MAGA.
Island, Massachusetts, New York, Vermont, Alaska, California, Connecticut, Illinois, Maine, District of Columbia.
Okay.
I mean,
So
just
you're
say
just gonna spew a bunch of nonsense facts, and you can't back them up. It was like a list of facts, and this is one that I knew. Okay, I could for sure pull that one up.
Okay, now that
So,
we're done
but
with
go
that,
on.
now that we're done with that, now that we're done, oh my God, now that we're
Moving on.
done with that.
Can you
Moving
post
on.
that link? Because the link I'm looking at says something
Yeah,
completely different. So can you
just
post
DM
that?
me the link and I'll
Yeah,
DM
I
it
will
to
post
everyone.
the
So
link.
go ahead. Post it in the group
Okay,
chat. Post it in the group
I'll
chat.
DM you the right link here. Sorry.
To Gibbs and Rob, this populist bullshit of somehow or another trying to blame NATO and the United States DOD for what we did in Ukraine, trying to push back against Putin's influence. You said, I'm not defending what Putin did, but I'm going to list a bunch of things that our nation did to better our interests in Ukraine and make that a reason for why Trump's foreign policy is somehow better, or say that somehow we triggered what's going on in Ukraine. Frankly, I'm honestly kind of glad that Putin did what he did, because now we're able to completely drain him economically, militarily. We get to turn Russia, if they weren't even already a paper tiger, we get to turn it into an even more of a paper tiger. I'm actually glad things went the way that they did, because honestly, I'm tired of a nation that's as delusional, as belligerent, and as crazy as Russia having the gall or perceiving themselves to have the power to invade another nation. That's actually beneficial for the United States, for Russia to no longer be a geopolitical player. And it's crazy to me how somehow you would compare Ukraine to Iraq when Iraq was cowboy foreign policy, and Ukraine is actually the defense of an independent democratic nation that is actually favorable toward the West, is friendly to NATO. It blows my mind that after Trump meets with someone who tried to block Sweden and Finland from joining NATO, we're still playing the game that Trump somehow had better foreign policy toward Ukraine in the last year or two, or at least ideas toward it, and Biden's been worse, when in reality, Trump has been enabling our enemies, has been disparaging our allies. What are we even talking about when we sit here and applaud Trump's perception of Ukraine?
In all of the horrible takes I've heard on Ukraine, I have to give you credit for having the exact worst take and the most disgusting.
No, I have the best
Please,
take.
let me finish. The most disgusting fucking comment I've heard. I don't know if you all listened to that spiel carefully, but let me tell you what he just said. The actions that I outlined of NATO aggression were, quote, good for us. Fuck the people of Ukraine. They were good for us. That's what he's concerned with.
Oh,
Then
the
he
people of
follows-
Ukraine want to be...
Please. Then
From what
he
we can
follows
see.
it up, please. Then
got
he
it,
follows
you
it
got
up
it,
with,
I got
he
you.
follows that up with, I'm glad that Russia invaded. That's what he follows it up. Now, this is
Yeah.
what's true of so many
Yeah.
of these people. They don't give a shit
mean,
about the
these
people
people?
of Ukraine.
Oh, I
It's
don't?
all about,
Preach.
please. shut your mouth. You've already exhibited your callousness and your stupidity. Don't make a bigger fool of yourself. Now,
You're the
they
biggest
showed
fool on
that
this
they're-
panel, both physically and mentally.
Okay.
I disagree.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
finish
One
my
at a
point.
time.
Thank you.
One at a
Got
time.
it.
Let him finish. Then I'll let you respond. Then we got to go to Hutch. That's the order we're gonna
Yeah.
go in. Go ahead.
The idea is that these people recommend these things because they know it'll never affect them. The people that will suffer the most by not pushing for a peaceful resolution are actually the people on the ground of Ukraine. They're the people that will be buying in droves, and eventually it'll end up the same way that Libya ended up, the same way that Afghanistan levied up. That these military-industrial complex people, the same people that are putting Ukrainian flags, the politicians that their defense contractors are getting millions and billions of dollars in contracts. Eventually, shut your fucking mouth, you fucking idiot. Have some
You live in a
courtesy.
world where because military defense contractors make money off of war, war is automatically a bad thing.
You deserve
You
to be
are
in
a
the same
child.
space as me.
You
You
are a
fucking loser.
child. You are
Okay.
a little
Okay.
boy.
Enough.
You are
Enough.
a
I
little
will mute you
boy.
both. I'll
You're
mute
gonna
shut
you.
this
I'll mute you. Okay, gang. We must have order in this house so people can understand what's going on. Okay.
We get some decorum.
Yes. Rob's going to finish, and then you can respond, and then we're gonna go to Hutch. Cool. Cool. Go to Rob.
I can handle people with bad takes, but saying that you're actually happy that this invasion occurred illustrates the callousness of the point that there are so many people that are willing to sit as armchair quarterbacks and say, yes, keep the war going. It helps us. It
Wick, you
exposes
gotta let me
Russia.
respond to this.
Please shut the fuck up. You are so worthless. The least you
I'm
can do
waiting
is
for the tears
Okay,
to
I'm
come
gonna
down
have
your eyes.
to. Okay, I'm gonna have to mute one of you at a time. What is this nonsense? Rob, finish. You will get a response, Rashad. You will get a response. I promise you. But you gotta let Rob finish, and then I'm going to mute Rob so you can finish because that's what I have to do. Okay, Rob, please go ahead.
So the point I'm trying to make before rudely interrupted for the umpteenth time is that these people are callous and they don't give a shit because they see some sort of personal benefit for their side or their 401k or their gas prices or whatever. And so when you let them talk, they expose themselves by saying things like, the actions we took that helped aggress was good for us, and I'm glad that Putin invaded. That's the truth of it. So when these people wax on about their moral superiority and having to stand up to Putin, remember, they don't give a shit about the people of Ukraine. They're more than happy to see more and more of them die so they could get on their bully pulpit and try to shame you into pissing more money away in foreign wars around the world while the people in this country suffer.
Okay, we good? I'm gonna unleash Rashad here, and he's going to go. And Rob, if you interrupt them, I will mute you. Rashad, finish, and then we're gonna go to Hutch next. Oh my God, that's what we're gonna do.
Can I go after Lauren though?
Yes,
or
you can
after
go.
Hutch or whoever's
Yes, you
next?
can go after Hutch.
Okay,
Go
thank
ahead.
you.
I would argue, Rob, that people like you are not so different from people like me. And this is the reason why I'll say this. People like you want to kick the war down. You want to kick the can down the road. You seem to think that a peace deal with Putin will stay exactly as it is. We've already seen Russia break the agreement before. They already had an agreement to take Ukraine's nuclear weapons and said, you know what, we will not violate these people's sovereignty after this. They promised, and they broke that promise. After Crimea, they took Crimea. They came back again. The reality is, people like you, for the benefit of your economy, for the benefit of you, for the benefit of not having World War III break out, you're just as happy to kick the can down the road and subject the Ukrainian people to another invasion. The difference is, I have the balls to say, hey, the war happening now and us confronting this now and ending this now is more beneficial for the United States, our allies, and Ukraine than kicking the can down the road and Donald Trump getting in front of a camera and said, I ended the war, I'm amazing. That right there is meaningless. And I would implore you, and I know you're not dumb, I would plead with people like you on your side to look at things from a different perspective. You are kicking the can down the road. Russia has already proven we don't give a fuck about your word, our word. We will continue to expand. Medvedev continuously threatens to blow up the United States and NATO over and over and over again. We have been shown time and time again, Russia has to be stopped, and they have finally put themselves in a position to be stopped. That is what I'm happy about, frankly, and I'm not scared to say that. So, with that being said, you sitting there saying that, defense contractors making all this money, military-industrial complex, over the course of history, defense contractors have always made money off of war. Boeing made money off of war. Lockheed made money off of war in World War II. So many companies we know and love. What about Glock? What about Smith & Wesson? What about Heckler and Koch, these are companies that conservatives love to death. Why won't you demonize those defense contracting companies that make money off of war right now? The point of the matter is, this populist foreign policy is wrong and is going to cause a World War III scenario, and it benefits all of us to stop it now. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Hutch, please. I don't
I
want to
think
circle.
it is-
We could circle back and forth forever on this, but I want to.
Okay.
Hutch.
Here's what I want to say. Okay. So us three, we got into like a little private Discord and we had a conversation about like, what do we anticipate we're going to be up against? All of this is entirely predictable. I remember saying like, they're not going to want to engage on the actual topic. Do you guys remember the actual topic? The actual topic is Donald Trump good for the Republican Party? Has he been a good force for the Republican Party, or has he hurt the Republican Party? There is no way that on the merits you could make the case that Donald Trump has been good for the party if we're using the metric of like electoral outcomes. He has been an unmitigated disaster for the party. And so what do you do instead? You want to litigate like the Ukraine war? You want to talk about Hillary Clinton? Quite frankly, I'm fucking flabbergasted that you haven't mentioned Hunter Biden by now. I'm utterly shocked.
No, that's fake
that
news.
hasn't
That's
come up.
disingenuous. That's
Can we
disingenuous.
Can we steer
I
the
brought up
conversation?
Hold on. Let Hutch finish. Let Hutch finish.
Can
please.
we steer the conversation back to the topic at hand? Has Donald Trump been good for the party? If so, how could you possibly make that case? If Bernie Sanders had won in 2016 and then my party would have gone along this like similar trajectory of like piss poor midterm performances, first midterm president since George H.W. Bush, special election defeat after special election defeat after flipping House legislatures, flipping gubernatorial seats, flipping state Supreme Courts, I would be furious with my party. I would be furious with Bernie Sanders, and I would want him to get the fuck out of the way and let somebody else come in. I don't know how you guys are. Can you make your case on the topic at hand?
Well, I want to say
sorry,
that,
real quick.
that is very
Wait.
disingenuous. That is very
Gibbs. With respect, Wick said I could go after that. I promise.
I'll
I'll be
go
quick.
after you then.
I'll just be super quick. So the reason I was quiet this whole time is because I was going through Lauren's link trying to figure out how the fuck she came up with that list. And she misread it.
Don't embarrass yourself right now. Don't embarrass. Read what I typed
I'm not. So if you go back to that list and you sort it, the reason she gets Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New York, Vermont, Alaska is tests per 1 million population, not deaths or cases. That's why even Rob says you had the wrong fucking numbers. So I agree we should not report false facts, but that's why I'm a liberal and you're not, because the facts tend to be on my side and not yours. Now that we've established that, now I'm tossing it back to Hutch and Gibbs.
So first of all, what Hutch did is extremely disingenuous, and that is a liberal tactic, and he wants to ignore what I said, which was I started, and I said the Republican Party has been unified under Donald Trump due to the foreign policy, partially, right? And I brought that up, and then he tried to dismiss everything I said because he didn't like the facts, which what I brought up, and he wanted to just slide on over and say that Republicans don't have that, and he wants to say, oh, this is not the issue at hand, which is bullshit and very disingenuous, and I'm very disappointed in you for doing that.
The difference between you and me. The difference between you
I
and
actually
me.
spoke up and said something on the topic, or you wanted to just avoid talking about the issue at hand, which I brought up that Trump said, hey, we're sick of these foreign policy issues. We want to spend the money at home. We're sick of sending our money and our children to foreign wars to die, and we're sick of sending money to Ukraine and spreading this thing out and like fighting a paper tiger war for Ukraine and sending people over there because people are dying. And like when I said, Trump said, hey, let's stop all that and let's spend the money at home, and Republicans are uniting behind that. And you said, well, that's not true. That's just, we're just going to ignore that fact.
Sure. Okay, so first things first, the difference between you and me is that I don't evaluate success when it comes to... The difference between you and me is that I don't evaluate success for my party based on uniformity. That is not a coherent metric to consider when we're talking about success. I look at election results, and I'm very happy with where my party's at right now. But I want to touch on something you just said. You seem to live in an alternative reality where Donald Trump like stopped all of our defense spending abroad, and then what? Started investing heavily into social spending programs?
What, do you
You're
think foreign
saying
policy is better now?
you're saying that Donald Trump, like, really? We stopped dropping bombs in like other regions? We stopped
Absolutely not.
participating in wars? Did we pass some sort of like a massive welfare state expansion that I'm just unfamiliar with? Like, can you explain?
I will explain. Donald Trump crushed ISIS. North Korea was no longer a threat. We opened it up under Biden, for example. We've had North Korea be more a threat. They've for the first time in 60, 70 years said they no longer see South Korea as a part of them anymore and are willing to go to war. Like, we're the closest to World War III we've ever been. We got Ukraine, Russia going, and Trump. Hold on. Trump has sat here and said, hey, a lot of this stuff is sick. We need to spend the money at home. That's been a policy point he's been talking about for years now.
What are you talking about? I'm asking you to expand on that. Hold on. Explain yourself. You said,
I am explaining that.
You said that he wants to spend more of that money at home instead of abroad. What are you talking about?
I'm telling you the facts, bro. I don't like. He literally crushed ISIS. He brought people out of all these other countries. He started the Afghan drawdown.
Hold on. We're missing each other. We're missing each other. Okay. So what Hutch is asking, he correct me if I'm wrong, but what he's asking is, when you say he wants to spend the money at home, in your opinion, Gibbs, right? In your point of view, what specifically at home is Trump advocating for spending money on?
Legislation.
I mean, like, let's start legislation.
Policies.
Policy. Yeah, I mean, well, okay, border. Let's talk about border. Number one, that's according to MSNBC and Fox News, the border is now 71% of the voters are talking about fucking voting on the border, right? That's like both a liberal and the conservatives are talking about. Here's a policy he's pushing, and he's saying we need to spend money on the border.
Right now?
He secured the border under Trump. He spent money at home building a wall that Biden has used the National Guard to tear down parts of. Like, that is a policy. Are you saying the border policy is not a legislative policy?
When you say something like, oh, he stopped doing all this shit abroad, which he didn't do, by the way. He escalated our drone program. He didn't pull out of Iraq. He didn't pull out of Afghanistan. So
he started to pull out.
When you say stuff like, oh, well, he was spending that money at home, what I think of is like, oh, were you talking about like expanding healthcare subsidies? Are you talking about like expanding unemployment subsidies? Are you talking about like expanded welfare programs? Like,
that's also a liberal policy. Well, hopefully he's cutting those, but that's a whole different.
Rob, you want next or?
Don't worry.
I'm talking about a tangible policy, and the border is one of them, and that's the one issue people are talking about voting on the most. And he sat here and he spent money on that. He pulled us out of Afghanistan, started to, which, like I said, Biden dropped the ball. He was working with North Korea to stop all the bullshit over there, and now that country's in a crazier position than ever. Like, I don't know how you can even argue that Biden's foreign policy hasn't been an utter and abysmal failure. And there's a reason why Trump people are sitting here going, hey, stupid, let's stop sending our money everywhere else and spend some money at home. And
why are Trump people talking to other Trump people?
Before we go on, I'm going to put a pin in this because they need to make money. And I said at the top of the hour, I'll read my super chats. Let me go through that, and then we'll get to it. And we'll go to.
Can I go after Rob, by the way, when you're done?
Rob, then we'll go to Josiah, and then we'll go.
Rashad, I think he said first, so I'll go after Rashad.
Sure. Okay. I'll get through these quick as I can.
Go after that.
Yes. $2 from Alex Kirsch.
Yeah,
$2 from Alex Kirsch. Gibbs is once again wrong. $10 from Go Away. Representative Ken Buck is retiring exactly because of the Republican Party's inability to govern effectively. He's quoted as saying that this is the worst year since he joined the House in 2015. Thoughts? $2 from Artemis Fowl. I think I dodged a bullet on this discussion. Go Away for $10. I'll donate $20 if Rob can make an argument without making an allusion to some conspiracy or whataboutism. Ukraine is like Iraq. Clown face. You know that's aggression. You know what's aggression? Taking Crimea with little green men. $5 from Artemis Fowl. I don't remember the military having a recruiting crisis under Trump. $5 from Go Away. Rob knows better than Ukrainians what they want. They've only been trying to join NATO for 20 years. Rob is a conspiracy preacher. What a clown. And $5 from Testicle Johnson. Why are we as Americans spending money to Ukraine when homeless people exist in America? Free January 6th, Patriots. Okay, with that said, we'll toss it back to the panel.
Welfare programs. I love it. I love seeing Trump people talk about like expanding social safety nets here. This is great. Bridges.
So there's a lot to say here. I'll say here real quick. There's spending, and then there's cutting spending and letting people keep more of their money. Gibbs is absolutely right about the disastrous Biden foreign policy. We can talk about that if you want. As far as keeping money back at home, he gave tax cuts, which did benefit poor and working class people, and let them keep more of their own money. I will agree he spent frivolously, and that's something that all fiscal conservatives should be mad about. now. Trump spent out the wazoo. It was ridiculous. We should criticize him for that. That's absolutely true. But he certainly wanted to spend billions back home on the border. And the Democrats and even establishment Republicans wanted nothing to do with that. They said that costs too much money. Instead, we need to fund gender studies programs in Afghanistan and ensure that the Taliban gets one of the strongest militaries in the world once we pull out and let all of our weapons there. Now, I want to, if I could have a back and forth with you real quick, Hutch, and then I'll answer those super chats. Just real quick, who sets the topic for a panel?
I don't know.
What
The boss.
I
a guess? It would be Wick, right? You would agree with that?
Sure.
I do.
Okay. Wick, can you repeat what you said the topic was at the beginning?
Fuck. So is the Republican Party been positive or negative, or has Trump been positive or negative for the Republican Party? We're going to talk about not only for the party but for America as itself. It was a broad kind of thing.
Wait, isn't that interesting? Now, I thought coming into this debate that it was going to be interesting, that it would just be, is it good for ours getting wins or ours getting losses, which is a different conversation. I was pleasantly surprised because I find that to be boring when Wick said, and also was it good for the country or not?
Okay.
So when you tried to shame people saying, actually talking about the policies that happened under Trump versus Biden isn't on topic, I'm not surprised you would do that because you can't defend the country under Biden because it's absolute shit. So you try to brow people into saying that they're not actually talking about the topic when in fact it's you that misunderstood what the topic was. So I just wanted to get that out, seeing it's how you've conceded.
To be fair,
that
to be
would
fair
the
to
ultimate
everyone,
authority on
it's
that.
very possible I communicated it poorly, right? This is just like I like open conversations more than closed, but that's
Okay,
it might be
I
on
mean,
me. This might
listen,
be on
listen.
me. I'm just
Sure,
saying.
and maybe I misinterpreted, and if that's the case, that's fine. But I do find it telling that like we are steering the conversation in like 25 different directions. It's really difficult sometimes to have conversations with people like you, Rob, because you make like 10 claims, and then if I want to unpack every single one of your claim, it's just going to take up the whole debate. And to me, when I was told the topic of this debate, at the crux of it was like, has Donald Trump been good or bad for the party? You're saying it was more than that. Fine. I would like to dedicate some of this time to that question. Has Donald Trump helped the Republican Party? I think that's a really important question.
Well, listen,
Especially if you're a conservative.
We have, and then I just
Hold
want to
on,
answer
hold
the
on.
super chat people real quick. But we have done that, right? We have had that conversation. I think almost everything I said, because I didn't speak first, was in response to something one of you brought up. So the idea that I'm just taking it to these fringe places, I think is nonsensical. To answer the super chats really quick, some person said they would like to see me answer something without some sort of conspiracy. I've been talking about things. I cited statistics on crime. I went directly to them. I cited the on-the-ground situation as to why we saw a spike in crime in 2020. I even corrected when people on my side cited statistics on COVID that I thought were erroneous. I've talked about things when I thought that Trump overspent. I've been pretty judicious, I think, in criticizing Trump when I should. So I would be happy to debate you anytime. It looks like you would be comfortable crushing me into debate because I'm just a conspiracy theorist that's unable to talk. The person that said that I know more than the people on the ground of Ukraine. Well, if the people on the ground of Ukraine are so gung-ho for this conflict, why is it being reported that they're now going to institute a further draft to get 500,000 people? Surely they would have no need of people if all the people on the ground in Ukraine supported this. And yet we hear reports that hundreds of thousands of men tried to flee the country because they didn't support it. Of course, there will be people that are patriotic, and anytime their country's invaded, even if they don't like the circumstances of what their country did leading up to that, they're going to fight for their home and soil. I don't begrudge that whatsoever. However, by the United States, and particularly people like Boris Johnson, derailing potential peace talks, we end up in a situation where these Ukrainian men are going to die over and over and over again. And can anyone on this panel or elsewhere give me the credible scenario where at the end of the day, it doesn't end with Ukraine having to go from a position of weakness to the bargaining table and giving some sort of concessions? We've heard Rashad say, well, we can't trust Russia. Well, Russia would say we can't trust the United States. For example, they continue expanding NATO. I gave a laundry list of things that were happening, bases there and all that stuff. Rashad brushes it all aside, says we have to fight them now.
Why did Sweden join NATO? Why did Sweden join NATO?
Yeah.
Why did Sweden? Why did Sweden
Why
join
does Sweden
NATO?
and Finland
Why?
join NATO?
It's because they feel now that they're being pressured by the international community to bolster the ranks of NATO.
Any other
What
reason?
is- Listen,
Any other reason?
listen, this is like saying, of course, once
Rob,
there is.
is there any other reason?
Let me finish.
Let him finish. Let him
Let me
finish.
finish. The point that I was making is that acts of aggression from NATO made a conflict inevitable. I still cheer for the West more than Russia. I still hope Putin loses,
What
goes out.
aggression?
The people.
What aggression? What
Well,
aggression?
let's see. Do you think the United States would be happy if 200 miles off the coast of the United States that over 50 nuclear warheads were placed by China? Would we consider that an act of aggression?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Cuban Missile Crisis, remember that? Did we consider that an act of aggression?
That's not the question.
Whose side are you on is the
That's not the
question
question.
here.
That's not the question.
Okay,
That's not the
it
question.
gets-
That was
The question
direct
is,
question.
why did
That
Sweden
was
want to join?
active
You're
aggression.
saying because NATO pressured Sweden to join. You're
sure
not
that's
even
not true?
acknowledging.
That's not-
You're not even making a little bit of space. Maybe Sweden wanted to join NATO because they saw what Putin is doing in Ukraine and thought,
You weren't.
I don't
You
want to
weren't
fuck with that.
listening. You
There
weren't listening to my
isn't any
answer. What I said, Lauren,
documentation
please let me
towards
finish
that.
real quick. Give me 15 seconds. I'll finish it up. If you were listening to my answer, you could see what I was saying is because the escalation made conflict inevitable. Yes, now people are going to draw sides, just like you see people in the BRICS areas
It was
that are
inevitable for.
Please
Sorry,
let me
sorry,
finish.
Sorry.
Please. Just like you see people in the BRICS nations that are now consolidating against them. So we're setting up a situation with global superpowers picking one side or the other, and even small countries picking one side or another. My criticism was that the disastrous policies of escalation, such as bombing Assad, having the CIA monkeying around in Ukraine, stationing nuclear weapons right off the side, stationing bioweapon labs right off the side of Russia, these sorts of things predictably were going to lead to some sort of conflict escalation.
That is not what Putin said when he gave his justification to Tucker Carlson just recently for invading Ukraine. His
What was his
justification was that there was like a historical land right issue, and the justification that he gave at the time was like they're Satan worshipers and they're transing the kids. He didn't even mention NATO as his justification to join.
That's not
What
true. So
do
if
you
you
think?
listen
That's
to
totally not
if
Hold
you
on.
listen to what he said, if you listen to what he said, you're absolutely right. It was absurd that he tried to give this historical justification. And if you disagree with that and you're on my side and you disagree with that, that's the exact same type of rhetoric that Gaza uses, that Hamas uses. This is the way things were a decade ago. That's horseshit. I'm not persuaded by that. But he also talks about how the CIA and other institutions were constantly aggressing against him. For example, he says that he talked to Obama personally about joining NATO, and Obama seemed to be like, hey, that sounds like a decent idea. But when Obama goes back home, the CIA's like, fuck off. No, Russia's the enemy. Basically, we're going to keep aggressing to them. And he basically
Okay.
said that they made it evident that it was going to be us versus them.
We do have to expand this. I know a lot of other people want in. I'm appreciating the energy. I'm appreciating the back and forth. There's a lot of people here with a lot of strong opinions. We got a lot of things to talk about. We still got a lot of time to go. Lauren wanted in, and then I know Josiah wanted in. Go ahead.
Wait, just a quick question to Rob. Would you want Russia to be able to join NATO?
Yeah, sure. I would want NATO disbanded. I think NATO is an relic. It is a military alliance that's goal was to counter the Soviet Union. Once the Soviet Union dissolved, by having that military alliance that at that point basically existed only to be a counterbalance to Russia that was in a set of perpetual decline, it only made conflict inevitable. Again, like we're overlooking so much of this shit. The ally of Putin is Assad, who the United States has occupied his country and bombed him. And we're told that just so all the audience get here what NATO is, that you're all celebrating it. Turkey's our NATO ally, correct? Anyone disagree?
Well, they're in NATO. I don't know if they're our ally.
Okay, we're told that we can't leave Syria, even though allegedly we've defeated ISIS there. And the reason we can't leave Syria, and when Trump tried to leave Syria, the generals lied to him. They committed treason when he tried to leave. The reason we're told we can't leave Syria is because if we do, our allies, the Kurds, will have genocide committed against them by our NATO ally, Turkey, where we station nuclear weapons. So we're admitting the official narrative is we are militaristically allied with genocidal maniacs and have given them nuclear weapons, and they will wipe out the rest of our allies if we don't have a perpetual military presence. That's the institution
Why
you
do
all are
we wanna-
defending.
Lauren, go ahead. Lauren.
Why do we want to be allied with more people who are somewhat genocidal and crazy? Why would we want to be linked to
Because-
Russia in a similar way that we're linked to Turkey if we were already experiencing conflict with Turkey?
I can answer this in 10 seconds. Because by Russia joining NATO, it would merely become a political alliance similar to that of the UN or the United Nations.
Okay,
Or to the United
let's go to Josiah. And
It's
then-
already
Oh, unless
Yeah.
you had more. Unless you had more,
Lauren,
Lauren.
was that what you wanted to say when you said you wanted to speak up? Was reply to?
Well, I do want to apologize for the bad stats that I gave earlier.
fine.
That's embarrassing. And you're right. It does seem like a lot of Republican states are kind of dead. Anyways, and also,
And by the way,
Yeah,
it's cool.
and
We were
also-
calling
It's
the weak.
cool.
We were
No,
calling.
no,
we were
yeah.
calling-
Let's just highlight that, like being willing to say, "Oh fuck, I fucked up and I got the wrong stats."
People make mistakes.
Commendable.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, continue, Lauren, and then we'll.
and then, but yeah, I think the UN is widely unsuccessful because it's just now like this. the fact that the U.S. has the same equivalent morality votes as any other country that is equivalent to the U.S., such as like China, and it's all bullshit now. So I wouldn't want the same thing to happen here and have Russia become a part of NATO. I don't understand why you'd want that. So
What do you want NATO to do without Russia there? What do you think the role of NATO is? It's a military alliance, correct?
I can
Against
jump
who?
in for you, Lauren. I can jump in.
yeah,
Wait,
go
go
for
ahead.
it.
Okay, I would argue that one of the other benefits of NATO is keeping an eye on our own allies, because allies can easily become enemies. One of the benefits of NATO is having military and economic oversight over the European nations. If we disbanded NATO, and let's say Germany, you said what?
Like, quick question. Do you agree with Rob then that you would want Russia to become a part of NATO?
Oh, no, not right now. I mean, in the future, I would love to be friendly with Russia, but not right now in any capacity, no.
Because one of the things that conservatives argue against is, or argue and say, Russia was feeling that they had to invade Ukraine because Ukraine was also feeling pressure to possibly join NATO, and other people were saying, well, we didn't want Ukraine to join NATO anyway because it's a largely corrupt country, so why would we want
How
them to be
about
a part of
this?
NATO? But same with Russia.
Let's
Where's your- yeah,
recenter
where's your-
things, and the question first for you, Lauren, and then I want to go to Josiah and the others, right? But first for you, Lauren. Do you
Okay.
think Trump's policies and rhetoric and how Trump influences the Republican Party's policies and rhetoric has been good for our has been the way we want to deal with Russia, or has it been hurtful to the way we should be dealing with Russia? Which do you think, and why?
Well, I think leading with power, leading with force, and without using force is much stronger than leading weakly and then having to use force. So Trump was his
Good or
attitude, I
bad,
put on
basically?
both the positive and the negative things. He was much better at it than Biden. There was peace under him. Russia didn't invade under him. There
So he's
was
made the Republican
and
Party
he was
better
the problem.
towards Russia
It
than
was
Biden.
bad because he was fighting with our allies a lot. Like he was fighting with Germany and he was fighting with Merkel. But then again, our allies were having shitty ideas, which is also what led to the Russian-Ukrainian conflict in the first place, specifically the pipelines, and so which were mentioned earlier. So it's positive and negative.
Okay, I probably inartfully phrased it, right? And excuse my brain farts here, but same question to you, Josiah, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the group here. Josiah, do you think that the Trump's foreign policies, actions during his presidency, right, and what he said he'd do if he is reelected, do you think that has had a positive effect on the Republicans or a negative effect on the Republicans in regards to foreign policy? Why or why not? Go ahead.
So I think a couple of things. Number one, first caveat that I want to say is I tend to focus more on domestic policy anyway. So in terms of like the technicalities and the intricacies, I'd probably have to defer to Rashad on this. But what I will say is something I hear a lot from Republicans and Trump supporters is this idea that, something happened. Again, it kind of goes back to what we blame or credit presidents of either party, be it Trump or Biden, for. And I think that there's a burden for any person making a claim, be it me with Biden or somebody else with Trump or whatever, where you have to draw like a direct connection to things that Trump did or didn't do or Biden did or didn't do, which contributed to a particular result. So one thing I hear quite a bit is that Russia did not invade any place during, Trump's presidency. For this to be persuasive to me and for me to give Trump credit, I would need to see something that he did which triggered a particular response in Putin, right? So because you could easily explain it, you could say, well, Putin was hoping that Trump would corrode NATO and that he would, it would either lend itself well to an invasion down the road, or perhaps he thought that it would produce other benefits there. Because like the way I look at it is Putin wanted Trump to win the presidency in 2016 and in 2020. He also wanted to invade Ukraine. So if he wanted these two things, why would we just automatically assume that Trump would prevent it? It's kind of like, that iconic moment where there was a solar eclipse and Trump looked up to it. Just because something happens when Trump is in office doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily give Trump credit for it. He's not responsible for the eclipse. I don't know that he's necessarily responsible for Putin not invading Ukraine. Also, I believe Putin was building up his armed forces at the time too. Rashad can correct me if I'm not mistaken, an invasion force. Then you look at like other things that were mentioned, like North Korea. We have no tangible benefit from North Korea or from Iran. You know, Trump pulled us out of the Iran nuclear deal.
Thank
I
God.
didn't see. I'm sorry?
Said thank God that deal was trash.
Gotcha. But I don't see any tangible benefit from that either, because there was no deterrent for Iran to not continue to develop its nuclear, its nuclear program, right? And they're closer now than they ever were to developing the nuclear program. So again, I would need to see like concrete, a causal relationship there. And then the last thing I'll say is that when it comes to just Trump's policies in general, or Trump's influence in general on the Republican Party and the country, I think one of the challenges is, and it's actually kind of gets back to what Hutch was saying earlier, where the conversation can fractal, I think in good faith, because then you start like diving down into policy, and then you say, is it good or bad and compared to who? And then you're talking about Biden's policy. So I think it's tough to navigate this conversation. But I would also be interested to hear if people think that Trump was good for the Republican Party. I would like to hear what they think about Trump infecting the Republican Party seemingly with the narcissism. Like you have Republicans now, like Ken Buck, who is resigning from Congress, further shrinking that Republican majority in the House of Representatives to now just 2 seats. You have Republicans who are saying that they won't, like Nikki Haley supporters, Nikki Haley Republicans saying they won't vote for Trump because of his, his corruption. They say those are his words, his corrupt behavior, his unethical behavior. You also have this idea that, Trump's above the law. He's right now trying to make the case before the Supreme Court that he's entitled to absolute presidential immunity, a notion which should be insane for Democratic presidents or Republican presidents. So I'd love to hear something about that if they think that perhaps Trump's narcissism has poisoned the GOP.
Sure, I can answer that. No problem.
Just
We got a lot. We got a lot of people. I'm going to let all the Republicans or all the people on Trump's side here respond, and then we're going to go to Rashad after all of them respond. So Rashad, you got a bit.
Clarify the question. Just to clarify the questions, you want a causal relationship to Trump and actions against Russia, and then number 2, do we have a problem with Trump infecting us with narcissism?
And to be fair to you, I'm not going to set the burden so high. I need concrete proof but like. So like, for example, just to give an example for like Biden, I would credit, Biden with job growth because of the vaccine rollout and also for the American Rescue Plan, which stimulated the economy. So it's like something other than it just happened when Trump was president, ergo he gets credit. Can you point to something that he did or didn't do, which reasonably contributed to something that Putin did? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can answer. I understood the question quite well. I can answer quite fluently if you like. It's up to you guys.
Yeah, you go first.
You
want me to go first? Okay. First off, it's interesting you said the vaccine rollouts. Just quick question. Can you tell me on average how many vaccines were being rolled out a day when Trump left office?
I think it was getting close to 1 million.
And how many was the average for Biden?
Over 1 million.
Okay, so about the same number.
I would say that, it wasn't like double the number or anything like that.
Yeah, it was about the same. It wasn't like 1.5 million. It was around the same number. In fact, Biden said it was his goal to roll out 1 million a day. That was being accomplished under Trump. Would you also admit that Biden said that he would be untrusting of the vaccine because he didn't think it could come out in the time frame that Trump was suggesting before the election? That's what he said. Go ahead. What he said.
What was happening was Trump was publicly pressuring the FDA.
That's not true. No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Did anybody? We could do this real quick. I can pull up the sources.
This is the problem. So I recall some statement by Biden where he said that he would trust it only if the scientists confirmed that it was efficacious. But this is what I'm talking about. With all due respect, Rob, now we're making it about Biden and the vaccines.
No. I just want to make the point because I will give the examples of Trump, but I just want to make the point because the examples you gave of Biden are actions that were already being taken under Trump. And to real quick get to your point, Hutch, did anyone from the FDA resign under this pressure because Trump was pressuring them?
It doesn't matter. He was publicly pressuring the FDA. It doesn't matter.
Next question.
No. You asked about Biden saying something. I'm telling you, there was a very specific context. He was not telling Americans don't trust the vaccine. You are wildly distorting what he said.
Next question. Did anyone under the FDA resign because of pressure from Biden when he was president over the vaccines?
I have no idea what you're. I have no idea what you're alluding to.
Yes, two people
The
did. So
problem is you say so much bullshit. It's really hard to like fact check everything you say. But let's go.
Okay, there you go. So
Yes.
the point is, what you could see, the very thing he accused Trump of doing, that he pressured them in unethical ways, and therefore the FDA was upset about this, and that's why Biden was justified in casting shade in the vaccine. It was actually Biden, when it came to boosters,
So what did
that
Trump
people at the
do?
FBI actually resigned because they felt they were being pressured from Biden. But I know that Josiah and Hutch didn't have shit all to say about that. They didn't care about that.
Oh, Jesus
now, to get to the
Christ.
specific,
Yeah, thank you, please.
policies that Trump did, right? One, when it comes to foreign policy, let's talk about that first. It wasn't just policies. That you would also admit that it's posturing, it's actions, it's diplomacy, and things like that. You would
Just
agree
Trump
with that.
actions, just
Okay,
which would
right.
include
So
whatever.
first off, I think a lot of what Trump was doing was that he was actually taking actions that were quite hostile and encircling of Russia. For example, massively expanding our energy production and exportation was one of the worst things that could happen. He also, to Russia, he also put heavy sanctions on Russian diplomats. He also, unlike Obama, actually provided militaristic defense to Ukraine, sometimes in which I didn't like providing Javelin missiles to them. Trump was the most hawkish president to Russia since Reagan. He was. It's absolutely true. Now, he said things like, oh, well, why aren't we working with Russia to fight ISIS in Syria? He was absolutely right to say those sorts of things. He walked softly but carried a big stick. He said things that might assuage a dictator's personality and narcissism, but then enacted policies that were actually quite hawkish against them. Biden, on that, real quick, like there's a lot to say in this. You also make Biden, on the other hand, showed incredible weakness. Incredible weakness. In fact, it emboldened our enemies. I agreed with the withdrawal of Afghanistan, but the way he did it, where you literally see pictures of people holding on to jet planes because it was such amateur hour, showed our allies that now is the time to act because the incredible incompetence and weakness at the top. You also make the mistake of saying that Russia wanted Trump to win. That's not true. Reporting from Michael Schellenberger just came out, and there was reporting going years back in this. The memo that said that Russia wanted him to win, that 17 intelligence agencies signed off, was actually just written by about 3 people under John Brennan at the CIA. There's now evidence that, there's now evidence that there was credible information that actually Russia wanted Hillary Clinton to win for the same reason that he publicly acknowledged he wants Joe Biden to win this time, because he finds both of them to be establishment politicians that are predictable, and he knows how to navigate. Trump is seen as someone who's unpredictable, so our allies have to be on their toes because they're worried they'll cross the line that Trump will go after.
You do got to get some back and forth in here, and I know I see Rashad and chomping at the bit, and I see you, Gibbs, you're chomping at the bit. I know. We're going to get as many people in as we can on this subject, but I want to give Hutch and Josiah a chance to respond to that really quick. Then we're going to Rashad. Well, Rashad, you're on their team too, so you can respond too. Then we're going to Gibbs, and then we're going to continue on. Go ahead.
Rashad, you seem really good with the foreign policy stuff, so why don't you go here? I want to hear your response to this.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so to bring things back to the topic at hand, talking about how Trump's foreign policy is affecting the success of the Republican Party. I want to argue with Rob because I like the fact that Rob is so populist and so into that shit, because I haven't spoken to someone like this yet. So when we talk about Ukraine funding, Gibbs, you spoke about, sending all this money to Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. We do have to come to terms with the fact that we're sending 1% of our GDP. So we have Republicans selling this false narrative. People like Matt Walsh going on Twitter and saying, aren't you mad about the fact that food is being taken off of the plates of American children and being sent to all these oligarchs and governments all around the world? And yet the Republican Party, both pundit and politician, have yet to present any sort of public spending bills for the American people that are downtrodden, hungry, poor, homeless, the whole 9 yards. So one of my issues here is Donald Trump, his cronies, his henchmen, and the politicians that support him are selling the Republican Party a fake isolationist world in which we can pull away from the affairs of the world and somehow be safe from the affairs of the world, disbanding NATO, not being involved in Ukraine. Rob, you spoke about disbanding NATO and what's beneficial toward NATO outside of dismantling Russia. I mean, keeping those European nations, the last 2 world wars started in Europe, the biggest war we've seen to date since World War II happened in Europe. It's incredibly beneficial toward the United States geopolitically to have a very strong and stern eye and complete control over what goes on in Europe. And NATO is our foothold and control over Europe. I firmly believe that if Republicans currently have their way with the populist, sort of anti-uniparty, anti-establishment, defense contracting nonsense, I firmly believe we are going to walk into a world where America is less powerful on the geopolitical stage, and that will negatively affect the Republican Party's ability to win in the future when Americans know that America will be weaker, will be softer, will be less involved geopolitically, less economically powerful. We will see that, and Republicans will take a hit for that at the polls in the future.
Can I just jump in real quick and just say, like, prima facie, the idea that Vladimir Putin would prefer someone like Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden over someone like Donald Trump is absurd. The Republican Party,
do well under Trump?
The Republican Party in 2012 nominated Mitt Romney to be their to be their nomination. He was sounding the alarm about Russia. Okay, he was sounding the alarm about Russia in 2012. Just 4 years later, you had Donald Trump coming in, who was undermining NATO to the extent that now it's like a mainstream Republican position to be like, fuck NATO. Let's just it's not our problem. Let's just let Vladimir Putin do whatever we want. Whereas you see Joe Biden, who is taking a very strong stance against Biden on the global stage, making his job of annexing part of Ukraine way harder than it would be. Donald Trump is just openly saying, like, nah, I don't think I'm going to give Ukraine any money. I'm going to negotiate a peace within 24 hours. What he means is just give land to Russia and just end the war that way. You're asking me to accept the findings of a hyper partisan guy in the Schellenberger, who in my mind has zero credibility after the Twitter files. That guy is a fucking clown. How do you explain? Why would it suit Vladimir Putin's interest for Joe Biden to win, who is pushing for Ukraine to get more aid, than Donald Trump? Make it make sense.
Okay, it's simple, right? I'll be able to do this quickly. First off, you already give the rationale in the example you give. I don't know if you understand that the example you give actually disproves your point. You're right. Mitt Romney, a Republican, did talk about Russia being our biggest threat. And what did Obama say? What did the Democrat leader say?
He poo-pooed him. He said, like, right, oh, whatever. This is the Cold War. Yeah.
Okay, so your argument is, so then going into 2016, clearly he would have preferred the Republican candidate, other than the party that literally laughed at the idea.
What was the rhetoric? What was the rhetoric? What was the rhetoric that Hillary Clinton was saying? What was the rhetoric?
Let me finish. The evidence is quite clear that it wasn't about the rhetoric. He understood what the eventual policies would be. He understood that Hillary Clinton represented an establishment foreign policy that was predictable. He knew exactly how to react. With Donald Trump, he and other both enemies and allies are afraid they cannot predict what he would do. So it's hard to make moves. For example, Democrats, people like you, have said, we can't trust Trump. He might drop nukes. The truth is, enemies could think that way as well. And the proof is in the pudding. When Trump was in office, he was far more hawkish than Obama. You can't deny that he was. And Russia did quite poorly. When Biden was in office, through his blunders in Afghanistan, his overarching incompetency, we can see that Russia feels emboldened.
Clarifying
There's more to say, but
clarifying question just for my own thing. Then
Before you ask that clarifying question, I'm sorry, there was a quick fact check I was trying to squeeze in there. So I found sources which have the daily vaccination average under Joe Biden at 1.7 million, and it never got more than the daily average. Then it never exceeded 900,000 under Trump. So it was a colossal disparity.
That's almost.
I will say.
No, say and then I'll have my clarifying question.
Okay. Right. The point is he got a goal of around 1 million, which Trump was almost getting. And remember, they created the vaccine under Trump, which the Democrats were saying would be physically impossible.
Exceeded
and
the
all
vaccination
Biden
rate.
did was like,
Biden
let's accelerate it. And that's what
the vaccination is worthless if it doesn't get in people's arms.
Right?
You lied when you said that the rate is the same.
I understand the need to filibuster when making this stupid point. So all he did was, okay, let's produce more. And you're like, oh, for that, I give him credit for job creation.
Didn't say produce more. No, vaccination rate. So vaccinations are when they get
and
into
then
the
you
arm.
can re-explain if you think I'm wrong.
Sure,
but you don't give Trump credit for having Operation Warp Speed, which, by the way, a lot of people in our side don't like the vaccine. You don't give him credit for the job.
When did I not give credit for that?
What you just said. Let me repeat. Maybe you forget what you said. You said, I need to draw a direct line of a policy that happened before I could give credit. So, for example, with Biden, because of his vaccine plan and rolling out vaccines, I give him credit for job growth. You didn't say, and I give Trump credit for doing the more difficult job of actually creating the vaccines at a speed that Biden was saying was impossible.
I said, let's use Biden as an example. So I was talking about Biden and gave a specific Biden action, which was the vaccination vaccination rollout, which was from a federal level, that happened under Biden, and the rate of vaccination radically increased. You said it was basically the same between Biden and Trump. That is not true. It actually nearly doubled.
I'm going to ask my question now, and then I'll let Rob answer it, and then I want to get to Gibbs because Gibbs is trying. He's doing his best here, and we love Gibbs. And Gibbs.
I'm trying not to yell.
I'll send you the links, buddy.
It's okay. So you said, and I'm just trying to understand here, that Trump was more hawkish than Biden when it comes to Russia, to Putin. Is that accurate?
Was more hawkish than Obama.
More hawkish than Obama. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Never mind. Different. Then I withdraw my question because I was about to say, well, there was a lot of things I was going to ask after that. But fair enough. If I misheard, that's fine.
If I could just ask real quick, any of the three lefties can answer. I would be interested if you could tell me what would Biden do with Ukraine, because I don't have a fucking clue. I think he'll cave in. I think he'll keep sending the money.
Biden continue to send them.
No, Trump. Did I say Biden? I meant Trump.
Oh, Trump.
If Trump wins, what would he do?
He will push to end Ukraine aid day one.
I don't think he will. I hope so. I hope he does, but I don't think he will. I think he'll give in.
Isn't that illuminating though? Isn't that illuminating? Like if you were Vladimir Putin, okay? Let's say take it back to Vladimir Putin 2012, or put yourself in his mind right now. If you were trying to shape public opinion on if you could only pick one thing, what do you think he would be trying to shape American public opinion on? That would translate to like actual political consequences. Yes.
The weakening of the United States.
The weakening of NATO. Yes. The weakening
of the United States in general. NATO's just who's the bulk of the military might behind NATO?
And this is me gesturing broadly at the Republican Party right now.
You made that
NATO
point
was an
earlier.
extension.
You said conservatives just now do not support NATO. I don't think conservatives have supported NATO for a while. It's well
simply
before
not true.
All right, Gibbs, you got it, Gibbs.
Yeah. So first of all, all right. I've broken with Trump on some of his policies. I believe in NATO. However, what Trump has done, and this is a big one. Y'all want some policies? I'm going to give you some policies. One of the things Trump has done is he's asked NATO allied nations to carry their fair share and threatened them if they don't that he's going to leave, which has incentivized them to start adding more to their defense budgets. We now have these countries, since he's threatened this, have been spending more on their defense budget. Let's talk about some other policies, though, that mean Trump has been good for the economy, because we've been spending a lot of time on foreign policy, and I think that is a pretty clear statement that we can all say Trump was better on foreign policy than the utter abysmal disaster that has been Joe Biden, the worst foreign policy president in history.
I do not co-sign.
I mean, that's fine, but you're just wrong. But anyway, actually, so first of all, Trump actually gave tax cuts. That incentivized the economy for the middle, lower classes. They'll keep more money in their pocket. Here's another one. He set up the border wall. He started that, which the Biden administration has used the National Guard to go and tear down parts of. In fact, he's used the National Guard against Texans to sit here and tear down their wall in treasonous behaviors. And Trump has sat here and said, "Look, this is bad behavior." Here's another one. While Trump was president, here's the big one. Trump allowed us, with his policies, to become the largest producer of oil and natural gas, according to Forbes and the Daily Mail, worldwide for oil and natural gas, right? Depending on how you define petroleum, right? So here's the thing. We passed Saudi Arabia. We are over here becoming energy independent. We're stopping our reliance on foreign oil. These are all good things. This is all good things for the Republican Party. Why would you want us to be dependent on countries like OPEC, that are in OPEC, to be dependent on these countries and beholden to places like y'all say y'all don't like Russia? Why do you want Biden to weaken domestic oil and gas production when he's stopping the natural gas pipelines? He's stopping oil production in areas. This is the thing that Biden has unequivocally done domestically that Trump pushed. And so you're sitting here, you say you want actual policy, and I'm giving you actual policy, and then you want to go into denial.
Here's one thing I will give you guys, okay? One thing that Trump did that I actually think was quite good is he actually got the Mexican president to invest $1.5 billion in border. Did you guys know that?
I see what you're doing
Mexican
here.
president to invest. I don't know what you're talking about.
That was actually Joe Biden that did that. I don't know if you're aware, but Joe Biden actually got the Mexican government to commit $1.5 billion.
How's it working? How's it working?
to the border situation right now.
It's working well?
Because
Yeah,
we
it's
had one president that said he was going to get Mexico to pay for the wall, and then we got another president that actually got.
Well, we have another
Mexico
president that
to
freezing.
dedicate $1.5 billion to the border wall. But anyway,
It's
or
worked,
the
right?
border situation.
So the border's great, right? Biden's doing a better job on the border, correct?
Yeah, it's absolutely abysmal.
Your party entered into negotiations with the Biden administration that lasted for like 4 or 5 months. You had a bill that
was, by the way, led. Hang on, just real quick to Hutch's point. That was
led by rhinos.
That was led by Langford, a Republican who was endorsed.
Can you turn your mic up a little? Is anyone else having trouble hearing me?
No, Josiah.
Are you fucking with me, Rob? Are you fucking with me, buddy?
No, you sound soft to me. I'm honest to goodness. I'm sorry.
This guy. Okay. So I see what he's doing here. No. So Langford was a Republican senator endorsed by Donald Trump in large part because of his hawkish conservative stance on the border. And he was the lead Republican architect for that bipartisan border bill that was endorsed by the anti-Biden, pro-Trump Border Patrol Union. I'm sorry, I'm going to throw it right back to Hutch. I just wanted to throw that in there, that the architect was a Trump loyalist.
I could respond to this if you like. It's up to
you.
I'm
ready for the border debate. Let's go. I'm always ready.
I'll give it to. I'll let Gibbs. Yeah, I'll let Gibbs.
Hang on. I was just addressing that point to clarify for Hutch, but I was also promised 30 minutes ago, because I do think it's interesting, especially it's related to the topic, about has Trump infected the GOP with his sense of narcissism, and we would say on the left, cultishness. I'm not going to use that word just in case it's like incendiary, but that's what we would call it, that he has made the GOP a cult. And given like Rob, for example, he's critical of Trump. Even in this conversation, he's criticized Trump. Does that not bother you, Rob? I mean, I know you're a populist, but don't you want the GOP to stand for something, like to be at least somewhat discernible from Trump? It's got to outlast him.
Here's how we're gonna do this, because you've tossed something to Gibbs, you've tossed something to Rob. We're gonna let Gibbs respond first, get that back and forth, and we're gonna give it to Rob. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I think that's fair for everyone. Okay, Gibbs, go ahead.
Yeah, so the border bill is unequivocally, anybody that's actually dealing with the border is unequivocally one of the worst bills in history. Every single line item on that bill, I could go point by point and tell you why it's a poison pill.
Gibbs, would you please tell the Border Patrol Union, those people who actually work the border, would you tell them that?
Is that who we should listen to?
I will address that. In fact, here's the thing.
By your conservative logic, yes. I'm saying that it's a conservative.
I will address that. If you're sitting here getting nothing, of course you're going to want something. Something's better than nothing if you're the Border Patrol, right?
There you go. So you agree that the border, that bill is better than nothing.
No, I absolutely do not. Here's what it is, though. The Border Patrol is a government agency that's sitting here. They're corrupt. They're not doing their job, which is why the Texas National Guard has had to step up and do their job for them. If you look at every single issue on the border bill, they just want more money because, every agency in the government always wants more money. But if we can sit here and look at the border bill, there's not one line item that actually does anything to solve the border crisis. It was created by rhinos who are not true Republicans. They're basically we all know what rhinos
Langford?
And they're all
rhino?
Absolutely.
The Trump endorsed James Langford?
I don't care. I don't care.
Trump endorses all kinds.
If you back the border bill, you are not a Republican. You're a rhino. You're a Democrat.
This is what he means when he says cult, by the way.
This is exactly what Josiah was talking about.
It's not a cult, because I've been very anti-Trump on a lot of issues, and this is one that I'm not. Trump is right about the border. We sit here. All we had to do, Biden has to do instead of this bullshit border bill, is maybe enforce the laws on the books. Why do we need this border bill? I don't know. Maybe that if you cross the border illegally, we send your ass back. We don't need to just sit here and start giving asylum. We don't need to make these alternative programs where up to 100,000 people can live here free of charge. We don't need to sit here and incentivize people to
that happened on Trump's watch, bro.
No,
the only reason that stops is because of Title 42 and the emergency powers. But we were doing like catch and release while they adjudicated asylum claims, which last up to like 5 or 6 years. This bill would have brought that down to 6 weeks, and you're saying it wouldn't have done anything.
Eventually, the average. This is how I know you don't know what you're talking about. The average wait is The average wait for an asylum person is 8 years, and you're telling me 50 new judges is going to cut that? Most estimates say that's going to cut it down to 5 or 6 years. Some are saying it's the 3 or 4. So if you're sitting here talking about 6 weeks, you don't know what you're talking about. You're clearly not dealing with the border issue.
If I could jump in real quick, so I don't remember the exact law, but the courts ruled on the portion of the law provision during Trump's alleged Muslim ban, which was really just a list of of countries that Obama came up with that were exporters of terrorism, so it was never a Muslim ban. Nonetheless, the courts ruled that there is a specific provision that gives the executive authority under emergency to control groups of people that can't come to the border. That could be swathing, saying no one can come to the border, or specific countries or specific groups. So Biden has the power to do that. He has chosen not to. The argument that people make, and you two can tell, or you three can tell me if I'm wrong, is that there's no money. We need more money. Is that correct?
I mean, that's part of it.
Leave them answer. I want to hear the left.
There is that. No, funding is a part of it. It's not just that though. It's using that funding to expand on immigration judges, immigration lawyers, to hire more border patrol agents.
Hold on, let him answer the question. You gotta let Hutch answer. Hutch,
to invest
go
in
ahead.
smart technology. I mean, there was all kinds of usage for these funds. It's not just funding, but yeah.
Okay, well, but if we have the authority now to keep all of those people out, and you say we need more judges, we need more guards, please let me finish real quick. So then the problem is that there's not money, correct? That we needed the money in this bill.
Rob, can you restate? I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Can Rob restate? I'm sorry, Rob. Could you restate? I'm sorry. The authority that Biden has now that he's not using.
Yeah, so if you go back and you look at the court case where the courts adjudicated Trump's alleged Muslim ban, whatever the specific, I wasn't prepared for this, but I've looked this up and I've seen there's an actual provision that they cite in law that says one of the powers that the executive has is that it's within his rights to keep any group of people that he wants out if he declares an emergency. So that's why it was legal for Trump to say we're not going to accept these countries. He could have said we're not going to accept any immigration or any asylum seekers. So that law is on the books. The courts have ruled that's legitimate.
Was it Title 42?
What's that?
Was it title? Is that the authority? The title? I thought that was the Title 42 authority that Trump used to expel people under COVID. That he was able to basically that it is a different provision. I believe. Gotcha. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I'll just answer for what I think that possibly Hutch is trying to get to, which is one of the problems is we need like all this new tech and we need all of these new judges. And what Biden and the Democrats are trying to say after 3 years of telling us there was no border crisis, now in an election year saying, oh yes, there is a crisis and it's the Republicans' fault, right? What they're trying to tell us, by the way, people that encourage the mass migration by saying it shouldn't be illegal, we hope that they come, and then that's exactly what happened and they flooded. Nonetheless, I get back to the point. What we see is they're saying we need more money and we can't just through executive fiat send money. Hey, aren't they sending $300 million to Haiti today? Didn't Biden just did that? Why couldn't he send that money to the border?
Well, and on top of that,
and then I know Lauren's trying to get into. So,
yeah. So, and on top of that, right? So, all these provisions y'all talking about, the people down here that are actually dealing with it know that these are incentives to come, right? So, like y'all talked about, like, oh, we need all this high tech stuff. All right, Texas built a barrier that was called Inhumane in Shelby Park, right? In Shelby Park, it was averaging 1,500 people a day. Now, since that barrier went up and the Texas National Guard defended it from the U.S. government, they stopped it down to 2 to 3 people every other day. Now, we had a border surge in an area where Biden's administration had torn down the Trump border in Laredo. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a surge. 21,000 people came through. One of the provisions in that border bill was that we're going to get 50,000 beds. Wow! So in 3 days, we had half that amount already filled, basically. Half that amount filled in 3 days. And you want to sit here and say that this was any kind of realistic solution? No, this was just a political slam dunk for like the Biden and them to say, "Oh, it was good," and Trump called them out. And Trump called them out.
Funds for Haiti, by the way, were taken from the Department of Defense. I think that's probably the reason.
And I want to bring up Haiti.
It's a defense issue.
Well, no, it's not. It's a DHS issue. It's a different executive branch.
I want to bring up Haiti.
It's impounding funds. I think Trump actually got, if I'm not mistaken, a court struck down when Trump tried to impound funds for his border wall when it wasn't congressionally approved, and the court struck it down. Kind of the same thing. I don't think.
So what is the defense for Haiti?
One at a time.
Because I think Haiti, if I'm not mistaken, is being attacked by like gangs or whatever. There's like a coup in Haiti.
There's a cannibal gang. There's a cannibal gang that's basically taken over. The guy named Barbecue is in charge. Basically, and it's united against. Yeah, it's a cannibal gang. They have videos and stuff, allegedly, or whatever. Like some of the videos haven't been.
Are you getting this because Trump said Hannibal Lecters are like coming into the country?
He's not lying.
No, there's a hold on, just so everyone knows, there is some allegedly, and I've seen some videos to suggest this is the case.
Okay.
There are cannibal gangs in Haiti that are
Yeah,
attacking the
and,
government right
yeah,
now.
and the
It's,
guy's name is Barbecue allegedly because he barbecues people, right? That's like in charge of this, right?
I don't know
So
about that, but it's a
yeah,
thing.
allegedly.
Anyway,
It's alleged. Anyway, so there's the thing, though. So Haiti has been an utter disaster. We talked foreign policy earlier, and I'm glad you brought up Haiti because part of the reason that Haiti is such a mess is because the Biden administration has sat there and stuck by the president that has been super unpopular in Haiti, and they've stuck by him, and it's created this mess, which just goes back
Okay.
to Biden being terrible foreign policy
Okay,
and
can we-
Trump being better at it.
we gotta let them respond.
And
Then we
United
gotta go to
Republican.
Lauren. Then Rob's gotta address the cult part. So I haven't forgotten you, Rob.
Yeah.
And gang, if you're
I'm
liking
weighing
this
in, don't
content,
worry.
if you're liking this content, hit
something
that
about
like
that
button,
cult.
hit that subscribe button. Come on, give me money, super chats. I'll read super chats at the top of the hour before we end. Don't worry, give me money. Okay, Lauren. Then or first respond to what Gibbs said. Then Lauren. Then Rob.
Yeah, I
Go.
just thought Admiral
wait,
Gibbs
hold
and
on.
Rob brought up good points about the border bill being a poison pill and everything. But that to me, that's not even the major issue. It doesn't even matter what policies are in place or what laws are in place. When you have illegals coming in and the Biden administration is putting them in planes, shipping them around the country, and already illegally like it doesn't matter what laws are on the books or what the numbers are when we know that the Biden administration is already illicitly acting when it comes to this. So I find that exceedingly frustrating, especially when they're acting illegally and we're using FBI statistics to be monitoring these types of things and other types of crimes, then how can we possibly rely on the same people who are taking these statistics then to be arguing these numbers? Furthermore, I just wanted to quickly comment on the cults comment. I find it ironic that voting for a president or having support for a president is cultish, but Trump derangement syndrome isn't considered a cult to you. I think the fact that we talk about Trump as often as we did, like 2 years into Biden's presidency before he started running for office again, the fact that we blamed every single problem on Trump, that people think that he is like Satan reincarnated, is much more cult-like than any MAGA movement could ever be.
Okay, so this is a
Well
what about
said.
it. Let's just grant it. Let's just grant it. Fine, there's Trump derangement syndrome. My question was whether or not this cult of personality is having a deleterious effect on the Republican Party. I'm not even gonna fight you on that. That's fine. There's TDS out there. But what about the cult of personality aspect with Trump and the Republican Party? Do you think it's good for the GOP, especially when you consider he's a 78-year-old man? He's going to die eventually. What happens to the party then?
What's interesting, and it is worth talking about.
One thing that I liked about the Republican Party growing up is how respectful we were. You know, Reagan never took his jacket off in the Oval Office, whereas, you know, the Clintons are taking their pants off. So I always considered us to be like the party of modesty and respect and everything. So I don't like everything that's so brashish about him, but simultaneously he calls out status. He calls out status Republicans. He calls things out as they are, and he makes politics entertaining, and Republicans
Honestly,
were wildly boring before.
So Hillary and Bill are gonna send the goons to come get you first and foremost. Then on top of that, using Rhino to like hold people who don't suck Trump's dick at political gunpoint is part of the cult shit that Josiah's talking about, where people can't say, you know what, I disagree with this guy. I don't believe in his ideology or his policies. Rhino, you turn the entire voting base against someone for disagreeing with this man. You don't think you guys are wrong for holding these people at political gunpoint, Laura Trump said, I'm gonna take every penny from the RNC and direct it toward Trump, a billionaire, I think. Trump's legal battles, leaving the down ballot, allegedly, leaving the down ballot, fighting for their fucking lives.
And also to Rashad's point, since Lauren mentioned an irony, it's ironic that if Trump heard what you just said, Lauren, there's a 50-50 chance, or better than 50-50 odds, that he'd issue a shit ton of mean tweets about you. He'd hate your guts because you dared to publicly criticize him. You know that he is thin-skinned in that respect. So that's right. I'm not sure. I know you've got thick skin.
True.
I know you wouldn't bother you.
Can I weigh in? Yeah,
Please.
I don't disagree. Just let me throw you a bone here. There are things about Trump where he is definitely the type of dude that you have to be all in with him. I don't like that. There are people that surround themselves with Trump that, like, I think are terrible. And even at the influencer level, they're fucking terrible people going after people's wives and shit. It's fucking disgusting. And I find that there are a small group of people that Trump could come out one day and be like, yeah, I'm for the Second Amendment. And then the next day he could come out and be like, we should ban AR-15s. And these people be like, yeah, whatever. Whatever he said one day to the next. There are those people. Now, those people exist with other politicians right and left as well. But I'll agree they're more vocal under Trump. There's a reason for that, though, which would be a long-winded way to say that they really thank Trump for actually speaking up for him, because people felt in my area of the world that no one spoke up for them culturally or politically for decades. And so one guy speaking up, unfortunately, some people think because he said some nice things about me one time, I have to be all in and I'm never allowed to criticize him. That's a terrible idea. And if you're listening and you're religious, you're a religious right person, your book tells you that you should worship no man. So don't worship that man. Criticize him when you feel like it. It's absurd to think he's beyond reproach. I'll leave you jump in. Then
Well, to
I'll answer
reciprocate
the
the
rest.
good faith, to reciprocate the good faith. I'm sorry, real quick, Hutch, but to reciprocate the good faith, I guess my question is, and I appreciate that, and how do you control for that? I guess is what I'm saying. Like, how do you say it's a vocal element of the GOP, that there are other aspects of this in other parties. I grant you that, but that it's relatively vocal and prevalent in the GOP with Trump. Are you not worried about it? I know you acknowledge it, but to what extent are you worried about it, and what should be done to control for that?
Well, I'm worried about it, but I have to I'm not worried about it near as much as a litany of other things. And you know this from talking to me before, Josiah. My issue, unlike probably at least the lefties on the panel, I'm guessing, is I don't really give a shit about a specific politician. I understand that one bad president will come and go, one bad FBI director comes and goes, one bad senator comes and goes. I have more of a problem with the institutions themselves. So, for example, I think, Josiah, you're absolutely correct. You point out to Lauren that her criticisms of Trump could lead to some mean tweets. You remember what Chuck Schumer said criticizing the FBI gets you? Remember that?
Oh,
Something about that they're going to investigate you. I can't remember the quote. I think
Right, that they'll find 6 ways of Sunday, which is exactly what they did. So when you talk, and I find it interesting in your opening statement, you talked about this when you're talking about the success of the Republican Party. Two issues you talked specifically, other than whether or not they're winning elections, were fundraising. In other words, how wealthy people feel about them, not the average people that the constituent mostly represents. And then the other thing you talked about was his corruption, the court cases. Well, the TDS that you all exhibit on your side is, and I'm not saying you personally, but it is probably you. You are willing to overlook the corruption from these institutions because at the end of the day, your political ideology is hating Trump. That's what it is. It's not, oh, I am a fiscal conservative or I am a progressive.
Okay,
I'm going to have to withdraw that good faith. We were so fucking close.
I'll give you a chance to respond.
No, hold on, hang on just a second. I'm 40 years old, man. I got into politics when I was 18. Okay, so my interest in politics goes well beyond anything that involves Trump. Like, he definitely energizes people on the left. He has certainly got a lot of people interested in politics for the first time. That is for sure true. But to accuse me of only giving a fuck about Trump is ridiculous. You don't know anything about me. I don't know why you would say. I wouldn't generalize.
I don't think that was good faith.
Let's real quick. So you're the same age as me, roughly. I'm 39. So
you were
when the Iraq War was coming, for or against the Iraq War?
Against, firmly, yes.
What did you think about our intelligence agency? Liars?
I mean, back then it was back then, in hindsight, what we know is that the Bush administration cherry-picked raw intelligence that was given to them by the intelligence agencies.
And the intelligence agencies went with it.
The executive branch, the head of the executive branch, is granted a broad amount of deference, and so, I mean, sure, yeah. Did you favor bank bailouts? That was every country is going to have black marks on their ledger or whatever.
Did you favor bank bailouts?
Sorry, say that again.
Bank bailouts? Did you favor them? I'm just going through the seminal moments in our life of big political moments, right?
They were necessary. Yes.
So you did favor the bank bailouts, right?
I'm not going to sit here and say oh, I love the fact that we bailed banks out. I'm saying it was necessary. Yes.
Did you think, for example, the accusation that Trump was colluding with Russia was a big event that needed investigated?
Yeah.
Do you think that it was a big event when we found out that the actual collusion with Russian was Hillary Clinton's team collusion with the suspected Russian spy named Igor Dashchenko? Do you think that needs investigated?
We just fundamentally disagree on these things. So.
No, it's not a matter of disagreement. Let me finish. It's not a matter of disagreement because what I find is, yes, you are correct that there are people that have political points and things like that, but all of it is superseded by their hatred of Trump. So unfortunately, people like you are a dime a dozen. For example, you'll say that you have some sort of core political belief. For example, you'd say the idea of corruption, you've all said it here, the idea of Trump being corrupt, that's a really important thing. Then when I crush you in a debate step by step, which I could do anytime you want, talking about the double standards and how people like Hillary Clinton was corrupt or Joe Biden was corrupt, you'll default at the end of the day if I prove that. You'll either, one, just completely ignore it, or second, what you'll do is say
Hunter Biden, say it. Say his name.
Second, what you'll do, second thing you'll do is you'll say, fine, they should have arrested them too. But you don't speak up about it. The truth is you're okay with the double standard because you hate Trump. Your other values are on the back burner because you think Trump is an existential threat, and therefore breaking a little eggs to go after Trump is worth it at the end of the day. That's why you have TDS and why it's worse than the
You gotta let Hutch respond. You gotta let Hutch. You get to respond. Go ahead.
I'm not even gonna like this. You don't know me, Rob. If you want to have a conversation and we can kind of pick each other's like ideologies, and I can give you sort of a sense of what I believe that has existed independent of Trump for 2 decades now.
But we all had beliefs before.
And some things have changed or whatever. But we can have that conversation. But I want to what I want to do is bring it back. When Josiah was talking about the cult of personality, I think a really good way to bring it into the discussion that we were just having is to go back to that bipartisan immigration bill. I just want to know, real quick, how does everybody on this panel generally feel about bipartisan efforts to get things done during a divided government? Would you say that it's...
I will address that. I'll address that right now. I'll address that.
I just want to say I'm generally in favor of it.
I will. I am in favor. I am in favor of it. And here's why. Bipartisan.
Let's get stop. Let's get a short yes or no from everyone because that is what he's asking. Bipartisanship. Are you in favor of it or not during a divided government?
It's value neutral.
I like it. I think bipartisanship is good. But that's
Rob. You think it's value neutral, right? It depends on what. Right. I'm with ironically, I'm with Rob there. I think it's value neutral.
They bipartisanly agree to invade Iraq.
I know you're both partisans,
right?
What we're talking about.
Yeah, but that ignores.
But what we're talking about is an effort to combat gridlock. And what we see in the polls is that broadly speaking, Americans want to see Congress get together and actually do things when you have a divided government. There is an appetite for that. And the extremes of both parties push heavily against this kind of thing. So you'll see progressives that talk about they don't want to do any bill if it means they don't get Medicare for all. And then you have Republicans say they don't want to do an immigration bill because all of their line items were not met.
I think a good example of this is also Israel-Palestine. That's a perfect example on the left of people who won't do anything. Right, unless
May I offer clarification, Hutch? But
I want to make sure Lauren gets a chance to answer.
They can't hear you.
Gibbs get a chance to answer, etc. Lauren, Gibbs.
You fucking with me? I just want to say that Donald Trump doing what he did and killing that bill is an example of how his extremism is not only hurting his own party, but it's hurting the country. Most people want to see an immigration bill, and if he would have just come out and not said anything or supported it, then of course Republicans are not going to get everything they want. Obviously.
That's saying
if they're not going to get everything they want, obviously. But the aim of the bill was to ease the burden of our currently overburdened system on our border that is not built to withstand this level of influx.
You're exactly right. I'll answer this really quick, right? Congress is massively unpopular because for years and years, they basically agreed on bipartisan things on the most important issues, which ended up fucking over the average people in this country. Yes, it's easy through polling and questioning to say, don't you want people to work together to solve problems? Of course, everyone will say yes. The problem is these thousands of pages bills that almost no one in Congress reads that spends all this money that has this archaic language. They spin it to the American people through their control of media saying, oh, this solves the border. It's bipartisan. It solves the border when it didn't do that.
Nobody said it solved the border. Nobody said it solved the border.
Please, they said it helped address the problems at the border, but it actually exacerbated them. And the problem is that
why would the border union sign on for it if it exacerbated it?
Holy fuck! The border union signed on to it because the reason.
Can we just each have a minute to respond? Go ahead, someone else. Gibbs, go.
Yeah, so I want to say
You're adding a lot here. Thanks.
Lady Wick.
I want to address
I
the
just
border
want
thing
to
again.
respond to this.
So
Yeah,
I
turn
want a
on each
minute
other,
too.
please.
So yeah, this is gonna be quick. I'm gonna say to your question, it depends. Bipartisanship is good when it's an actual concerted effort to like solve a problem, which the border bill was not, right? And there's a reason why I say this is like like true statement. Like I've read the bill like all 659 pages, like in depth. Like I'm avidly against it, and I'm not a diehard Trumper. I mean, I know I'm Trump like right now because it's Trump time, right? Like it's time. This is who we're behind. This is our candidate, right? But when it comes to the border bill, it's dog shit, right? And there's a reason why bipartisanship doesn't work. For example, we have the Lake and Riley bill coming out right now, and Democrats are already doing the Never Trump thing with it and doing their own cult of personality, which the Lake and Riley bill's already got bipartisan support. And Democrats in the Senate and some in the House that did vote against it are just unequivocally going against it and screaming, "Oh my God, this is terrible! It's racist, yada yada." In fact, I would say the bipartisanship problem is even less so on the Republican side than it is on the Democrat side. Because in fact, I was watching MSNBC last night, right? Because I watch all the news agencies because that's how you get your news. You watch all of them and see the spin. And Rachel Maddow and crew were sitting here talking about how whenever we bring up issues like the border, we bring up issues like the economy, what's the first thing they do? They say, hey, Republicans are racist. They're making these race issues. We're voting on race alone. And that's the thing Democrats have done since at least the early 2000s, right? They've sat here and turned it into race issues instead of like what Bill Clinton said to George Bush Sr. back in the day. It's the economy, stupid, or it's the border,
Gibbs,
stupid. So yeah, I think bipartisanship is good when it's actually genuine.
Before we
Gibbs,
get responses, Lauren's trying to get in, and I want to give her
shit, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren.
Just quickly with bipartisanship, I think it is kind of what you just said. It sounds good on paper. However, it's always poison pilled. There should be page limits. We have page limits in most parts of law, so we should have absolutely page limits on all bills going forward so that we don't have sneaky stuff thrown in. And furthermore, this goes back to what we were talking about with the original topic at hand. Is Trump good for the American Party? And then your points are, oh, well, the Republican Party is more split. You guys are calling us statists. It's this Trumpism. It's this cultism. It's that Trump is just not conceding to this bipartisanship ideology anymore, which was getting Republicans nowhere, because even when we pretended to be agreeing on something, we were just conceding to the left continually for a long period of time. And Trump came in and said, I'm no longer a statist. I'm no longer just going to agree with everything. I'm going to point out what is a poison pill, and we are going to have
And
people,
look
we're
where
going to
it
have.
got you.
Hold on. That's not what you and so many people from this populist, you guys are demonizing experience in Washington. You're demonizing cooperation, and you're calling anything that's against exactly what you want a poison pill.
Yeah.
No one side has the answer to everything. No one side, not our side, not your
Well,
side.
more important
we
to what
have to cooperate. We have to cooperate to get shit done that can at least somehow meet in the middle. But if you're championing and prioritizing this winner takes all mentality where Trump comes in and just completely clears out all of Washington of anyone who's not sucking his dick at that moment, we're not actually benefiting the nation. We're just riding the coattails of a cult.
So right there, actually, I thought Rashad just made a really interesting point.
It's a really bad point.
Hang on. Just I think the substance of what Rashad said, except I would substitute a word. Let's say that he said, I think something to the effect of neither side has all the answers. Take answers outside. How about leverage? Right. So this is what I was going to ask Gibbs, and I'd like Lauren to respond to this as well if she wants to, which is, Gibbs, you said earlier, as much as you hate this bill, you said, and I quote, something is better than nothing, to explain why the Border Patrol Union. Well, no, you did say you may, if you want to recant it, that's fine.
I'll explain that statement. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, let's imagine a timeline then where at least some conservatives genuinely believe that this bipartisan Senate border bill would have done something positive for the border. Here's the point, to Rashad's point. Set answers aside, it's about leverage. Republicans barely control one chamber of one branch. So to me, where I have a hard time squaring it, I agree that bipartisanship is value neutral. But to Rashad's point, if you want to make at least some progress that gives you some things as a conservative, not all, clearly not all, then why not pass it and then make room for additional legislation, better legislation, if you sweep the elections and get what you want rather than kick the can down the road? Because right now what we have is a contradiction. What we hear is There is a crisis right now that needs to be addressed right now. But if I can't get everything I want, then I'm not doing anything.
Yep.
I hate to interrupt. Right. We are coming in at we're gonna start winding down here. I know this has got a lot of energy here. A lot of people want to have their say, but we are winding down. Huh? You want to keep going? If everyone's cool with keep going, we can.
I'm
keep
fine.
Going.
Yeah, I mean,
and if you want to bring other people in, Wick,
sure.
too,
I just want to make sure because I did say 6 to 8, and I want to respect everyone's time. So I'm just letting people know. That is the thing.
I'm not committing to anything. I'll keep going as long as the conversation's fun.
To keep going. We will have a break to read more super chats, obviously.
Anybody who leaves is a coward, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
fuck you.
When it comes to the border bill,
Take
the mic with you, Rob. Take it with you.
Yeah, we want to hear the piss. No, I'm sitting. Listen, sorry. All right. Anyway, so when it comes to the border union, I think that the border union is obviously they want to increase their funding so they can do more things. That's what the border union wants. So if you're the border union president or the border union leader, of course you're going to say something is better than nothing. Now I'm not saying that in this case. I'm saying that's what he said.
Can we focus on that for just a second, Gibbs?
Clarify what I'm stating, right? Yeah, we can focus. But here's my thing. Here's my thing with that, right? I've sat here and I have dived deep into this. And when I say the whole thing was a poison bill, I'm legitimately coming at this as a Republican who's not a diehard Trumper. Like, I know I'm coming across that tonight. I've argued against Trump on many issues before, right? And I've sat here and I've looked at this. This is an issue that Republicans, that if you're an actual Republican and conservative that's dealing with the border, there are things in this bill, in addition to other smaller portions, that are unacceptable to you at every level, right?
Okay,
so,
but wait a minute.
But hold on. So whenever y'all say, "Oh, this is a bipartisanship thing to get something started," no, that is not what this is. This is a bipartisanship so that certain people in Congress, mostly rhinos, and I'm going to use the word rhino because these are not people that have Southern Republicans' best interest at heart. These people are actually going actively against this, and this is not a cult-like mentality because, like I said, I'm not a diehard Trumper. When I sit here and I see people support a bill that is so unstomachable that I just want to gag when I finish reading all 659 pages.
Can you give us a few poison pills, like 2? Give us two poison pills.
All right, let me pull it back up here, and I'll give you exactly one of them right here. So, first of all, let's talk about this one. It's 609 pages. My bad, not 59. So, first thing we got the amount of beds. You got to give us 50,000 beds. Like literally, most months are averaging over 100,000 people. Right? That beds thing is not going to do anything. Right? We're talking about the judges and speeding this process up. That is an incentive for people that are living here. They know that is an incentive for more people to come. That's terrible. There's 100,000 people on this border bill that are going to get alternatives to deportation programs and are going to be allowed to stay, or just for whatever reason, et cetera, et cetera. We can go into all the nitty gritty of that.
Can they make it more difficult to apply for asylum?
No,
it does. It raises the standards.
That's a lie.
Yes.
It doesn't. And then not only the other issue, and this is the biggest one, right, is that I can sit here and look, and people go, "Oh, look, it was bipartisan. It's bipartisan. It's great." And I can point to 61 different times where the Biden administration has actually sat here and made the border weaker, through different acts, and then they turn around and want us to eat shit and eat this bill, and then say, "Oh, it's a bipartisan effort." No, absolutely not.
Before we get to responses to that, and we will, I do need to read the super chats, and again, just for everyone's knowledge, I am sponsored by, or I'm not sponsored, that's not the right word, but I get a check from Progressive Victory, just so full disclosure, everyone knows. I think Josiah and I think Hutch also work to various degrees. I'm not sure the exact nature of their involvement, but they are. So just full disclosures all around. Let's get to the super chats, and then we'll get to some responses. And gang, I will be reading this because apparently my panelists have rebelled. I've tried to shut this down, but they won't let me. And so we're going to keep going as long as they want to keep going. So this is how we're going to do it. Okay, here we go. Here we are. $5 from Origin of Logos to say Trump is the perfect embodiment of the Republican Party. More money-hungry, war-obsessed, and vacuous. Thank you for the $5. $10 from Mad Honeybee to say, Wick, what kind of liberal are you to let the woman keep getting interrupted during National Women's Month? Ha ha, JK. Keep up the hard work, buddy. Thank you for the $10. Yeah, and if you guys want to keep giving me super chats, I'll keep reading them. But that's where we're at. You can respond. to Gibbs, then we'll go.
Give Lauren a chance.
I remember.
respond to
Yeah,
I
I do
remember-
want to hear
Oh, yeah,
Lauren's
yeah, yeah.
response as well.
Yeah, I could go through all specifics. There's I have issues with almost everything in the bill, like specifics wise. I know that we have limited amount of time on these kind of things, so it's hard to go through and sit here and point each
30
point from
seconds.
point.
30 seconds. I'll give you the take. The Border Patrol supported it because they get more money, and they thought that it would be bad but better than the status quo. What they don't look at is that it gives unprecedented authority to Mayorkas and the people he hires to determine whether or not to enforce these provisions. And so there are all sorts of exemptions. They would be able to say, well, these people are special cases, so they get asylum. They'd be able to say, we could have so many days a year that we don't enforce this. And it enshrines this into law for multiple years, which would mean if Republicans and Trump wins in 2024, they wouldn't be able to change this laws. Now, compare that to H.R. 2 that was passed by the House that closes all of these loopholes. Why would we trust the very people that told us they want the illegal immigrants to come, it's racist to not want them to come, and said that it wasn't a crisis for 3 years, that now all of a sudden in an election year say, oh, compromise with us and do this? The problem's not that it gives money and saying, well, you've refused this money. The problem is because the things that it enshrined in order to get that money sent there are far inferior to the status quo and would encourage more illegal immigration.
I mean, when this stuff happens on like my side, I think it's just, I think it's really bad for our politics to make perfect the enemy of good. And I seem to recall, I could be fucking crazy, but I seem to recall in 2016, 2015, one of the big things that Donald Trump ran on was he was a deal maker. He was going to get stuff done. He was going to get the parties to work together. And what ended up happening? He was absolutely
They illegally
shit
on him
absolutely
and meet him in
dog
every way.
shit at negotiating deals. He presided over the longest government shutdown in our nation's history.
Democrats.
That dysfunction has now extended to this speakership debacle that's blown up like a couple times now at this point. And he's not even in power, and he's still blowing up deals. So contrast that with the current president, who actually was able to successfully negotiate bipartisan stuff. And look, the gun bill didn't do everything that I wanted it to. The infrastructure bill didn't do everything that I wanted it to. The ARP initially and Build Back Better. I mean, I'm a big government welfare state kind of guy. And so I wanted to see $15 an hour minimum wage. I wanted to see more subsidies, these kinds of things.
Yeah.
My chat is distracting me with something right now, but
The last thing I was just going to
I'll
say.
jump in real quick then. That's hilarious. So what you do is you blame. Go ahead, Rashad. You're right. You run it. Good.
We do want to go to Lauren because again we got to.
that's right.
She's had the least amount of speaking time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Bill is passed by Congress that grants any group or any agency or the president or the Secretary of Foreign Affairs or anyone particular power, and that power is not specified very specifically, then that power, we give deference to whoever is in charge of that power to make their own decisions with that. So this bill, as Rob stated, would give whoever is in charge of the border unprecedented power, and they would be able to manipulate it in ways that ongoing in the future that we wouldn't be able to control without putting in a new bill or getting rid of that bill, striking that bill. So, and then I just want you to address that, because when that was pitched to you, you then switched to 2015, 2016 about Trump promising to try to be bipartisan and try to push more things, even though, as stated earlier, there's a target. That may be true, but you completely negated to address the point at hand, was what a disaster this bill was. Instead of, you're saying that we should just agree to it for bipartisanship's sake, as opposed to addressing the issues at hand with this bill. There's plenty of other issues with this bill, including incentivizing people to come here, as stated by Admiral Gibbs, with the extra beds. And just because there's money going there, that doesn't make, if we're getting rid of walls and then making it more comfortable for people to stay, how is this a beneficial thing for people that are?
Should we make it uncomfortable for people that are applying for asylum? Do you mean
we should make it uncomfortable for people who are illegally breaking our laws? In fact, that's what jail is.
What did you think, for example, when Katie Britt referenced that one woman who was sex trafficked when she was 12 and all these kinds of do you think that people like that?
I would love to
Hold on, let Hutch finish. Hold on. Let Hutch actually finish what he's asking, and then I promise both of you a chance to address that. Go ahead.
So if you agree that it's bad to have people being sex trafficked, like, and all that stuff, do you agree that these people should be given asylum?
No.
I
I
agree
can answer if
that
you
it's
like.
bad to be sex
Absolutely
trafficked,
not.
and I agree that we should make it very, very, very,
Bro.
very difficult to come in so that people are not incentivized. Because did you know on the way up here, not even once you're at the US border, but on the way to the US border, 1 out of 4 to 1 out of 3 women are great or put into the sex trafficking ring by their coyotes and usually charged. It's really a horrific thing,
I find it
especially the children. So if you want to mitigate that, then you would have less people incentivized to come to the border. And when we had Biden as president, and with Mayorkas, we have had people wearing T-shirts saying "Thank you, Biden." And when we've had people come up to journalists at the border, their reason for coming here is because it's now easier to come here than ever and easier to stay, specifically under Biden.
Your concern about like sex trafficking victims rings like quite disingenuous. If you're going to sit
How
around
dare
and
you?
how
dare
dare
you?
Excuse me. I asked you if we should give these people asylum. You said no.
Absolutely
I'm sorry. There's
Right.
an
I
extent
did
to your
not say that. Did
I'll
I say
address
that?
this when
I
you-
did not
Sorry.
say
Okay.
that.
get around
If you
to it.
didn't say that, then I apologize. I thought you did. Or I'll center it on Rob then.
Well, no, hold
find
on. Before Rob goes, I just want to ask Lauren directly, right? So do you support asylum for these women? Or Lauren specifically?
I think that I support asylum for people who deserve asylum.
Do you think they do?
If you are sex trafficked, that is part of the laws of. I believe being a part of sex trafficking is a membership for asylum. I'm not sure. Not sure what the
No, the
laws
question
are
is,
for
do you
asylum.
support that?
do you
Well,
like
they would
regardless
be-
of what the
they
hold on,
would
stop, please, because I'm trying to understand her answer. You personally, laws aside, do you personally support asylum for victims of these types of sex trafficking and things like that? Do you?
Before you ask that,
No,
wait,
I'm
wait,
asking
no,
Lauren.
no, wait, no, hold on,
Let
hold
her
on,
answer,
wait.
let her
That's
answer,
not a
let her
fair
answer.
question. That's not a fair
And
question.
I'll shred their disingenuous
Yeah.
bullshit because
Let
they
her
That's not a fair
answer,
question,
let her
Nick.
Fuck.
That's
I don't
not a
know
fair
if
I
question.
just wanna know the
Out
answer.
there, I'll shred them. We'll wait until I get to
There's
speak and then I'll shred this segment. Go for it.
There's specific legal definitions that are required, and I don't know if there's any like sex trafficking victim that allows you United States citizenship. Simply, I feel very unfortunate for sexually trafficked victims. I don't know if there is anything under the
Why are
U.S.
you
provisions that
waffling on this
allows.
question?
No, hold on.
There is-
Stop this disingenuous.
You're
There
not
is
Let me
something
answering the
address that question,
question.
Wick. I want to address.
Hold on, let her finish her
I would
answer.
say
God damn it,
yes,
all of
I
you.
would support
That's
it.
good.
You're not
I
answering
would
the
like to look
question.
more
It's a
into.
disingenuous question.
I would like to look more into
She
it
says,
because
I don't know.
also I
So
fear
I don't know
that-
is a fine answer for
I
this.
want
No, I'd
to
like
answer
look
that.
more into it.
I want to answer that, and it'll be real fast. It's real simple, Wick.
That's wild
Wait,
to me. She
hold
did not
on,
answer
no.
that question.
I will answer. I'll tell you
Okay.
why, because it's a disingenuous question, because she answered it earlier, which is the fact that they wouldn't be getting sex trafficked and they wouldn't even need this asylum if we had actual laws and were enforcing the border. So the only reason they're
Right.
getting
That's an
sex
absurd thing to
trafficked
say.
is
What
because
about
of
Katie
the
Britt's
laws that
victim?
Biden is not enforcing.
What about Katie?
That's
What
a
about
fact.
Katie? What about the story from? What about the
Here's-
victim from
here's
Katie?
another-
What
hold on,
about the
hold on,
victim
one
from
second,
Katie
one
Britt's
second.
story that wasn't trafficked? That was not trafficked in the United States, but was trafficked in Mexico. Let's say this individual
One thing I
was
wanna
trafficked
say-
in Mexico, and they run to
Okay.
the United States border.
Uh-huh.
Somehow get there. We know they've been trafficked. We know they've been sexually assaulted.
Wait, let
Do
me
you
answer
guys in
that.
any way,
Let me
shape, or
answer
form
that.
want to give them asylum? Because I
Let me
took
answer
heat for
that.
saying that
If-
okay.
If offering asylum to people who are sex trafficked actually encourages the number of people who attempt to come here and therefore the number of people who end up becoming sex trafficked, then unfortunately I would have to not support the law because I would want less people sex trafficked.
Okay, so are you for asylum for any people that are economically downtrodden, violent, sexual? Are you for asylum for any of those people? War, because
Poverty
by
is
your
not the
logic,
reason for
anything
asylum.
negative that
It's not
happens to
in
the
law.
because by your logic, because a bunch of people who aren't suffering would take advantage of it, we should not give asylum to those who are actually suffering. Is that what you're saying right now?
Would you advocate for a policy that led to more sexual assault victims? Yes or no? Do you advocate for if we can
Oh
prove
my
that a
God.
policy led? No.
Okay,
I
and
understand that you're
let's take
Rob,
a step up.
yes,
Because
Rob.
you're very manipulative with this. You're very manipulative, and I'm gonna jump
You're
over
being
it.
manipulative.
Like
You're
you're
being
doing
manipulative.
Go ahead.
What's going
You're being manipulative.
I'm not
Do you
manipulative.
support a policy of eating babies, Rob? Go.
No,
you
the
su- do
question
you-
I'm asking you is quite literally.
I'm happy
eating
to
babies,
engage.
Rob.
What you guys are doing. Oh, you don't have a heart for sexual assault victims? Here's what happens. You all support policies that lead to more people attempting to get asylum. You know that when more people attempt to get asylum, they'll be sexually assaulted more.
Facts.
You
can
don't
use
give a
the
shit.
same
Let me
argument for
finish.
Ukraine.
I
We
sat
can
there
use this-
quietly. I sat there quietly for you guys. I was very patient. I was frustrated, as you can tell, but I was patient, right? So that's what you do. You know these policies will lead to more sexual assaults.
Facts.
You don't give a shit. You say, well,
Facts.
they should, but look at the poor situation they're in now because we incentivize them to come. Now they've been sexually assaulted. So now we have to leave them in. It's the same type of shit that it would be like, we should bomb Syria. And I'm like, no, that's terrible. We shouldn't bomb Syria. And then we bomb Syria and you go, oh, look, there's refugees. Now we have to take the refugees in.
Facts.
Isn't it convenient that the leftists that want all of these people to come anyways have the disastrous policies that allow them to come, which then predictably they're harmed, and then say, oh,
Facts.
because they're harmed, now we have to leave them
you
in.
can use this. You can
This
use
is the
this
same
logic.
argument for
Sexual
Ukraine. This
assault.
is the same. This is
Don't
the same
give a
argument
fuck
for
about
Russia
them.
and Ukraine. This is the
No, it's
same
not.
argument for Russia and Ukraine. Yes,
Absolutely
it is. This is the same argument. I can
not.
sit there and say, don't you realize that by not stopping Russia right here and now, you're incentivizing Russia to attack Ukraine again when they finally rearm and resupply and refuel? They're gonna come back again. We can extend this argument. My point here is this.
What?
The
That's-
woman in
that's-
Katie
that's
Britt's
false
story,
equivalent,
the
Pete.
woman in Katie Britt's story was not even raped when she was coming across the border. She was raped in Mexico, right? Because someone who's suffering any sort of thing, any sort of financial upheaval, war, violence, grape, whatever, because it might incentivize more people to come illegally, we should not grant those people asylum. So do we just not fuck with asylum? I'm asking this honestly. I'm not trying to
I have a
gotcha you.
question. I have a
Are
question.
you guys not fuck with asylum?
question.
Yes or no?
I'll answer, but we'll leave Lauren go.
Hold on. I have a quick follow-up question. Do you think anyone who suffers from a crime in a foreign country should be able to come into the United
That's
States?
not what we're saying.
I think they should. I
Nobody's-
think they should be allowed. I think they should be allowed to apply for asylum, not hop over the border. But if they want to come to the border and say,
Anyone
"Hey,
who
look, I'm here
suffers
for
from any
asylum,"
crime,
if
So
they
let me
wanna
answer
come-
your question. Let me
you
answer
have
his
to
question,
asylum-
please.
okay.
No,
I'll
she asked
answer
us a
this
question. She asked us a question like a
Okay,
victim
you're
of
right,
any
Mitch. I wouldn't want-
crime.
You're right. I wouldn't want me to talk either. Go ahead.
Rob, go ahead.
Well, I
Let
promise
her
we'll all get to
eviscerate me.
talk,
Shred
right?
me to
That's
pieces,
how
Rob.
asylum law works.
Hutch, go ahead.
You're asking us if like a victim of any crime should be granted asylum. That's not what the asylum laws are
That's what
about.
you're advocating, though.
They specify. No, I never advocated for that. No, absolutely not. We have
That's
asylum
what you are.
laws that give. What did I advocate for? When?
Just, I mean, the
How?
whole thing, just now was sitting here saying, "Oh, poo, someone's been sexually trafficked. Oh no, yada yada."
Okay, right.
Oh, it's the
So to
same as
clarify,
Ukraine.
I didn't
That
say
is-
that. So to clarify,
yeah,
I did not say
Your
that.
side
Right.
did,
Okay.
dude.
No, we didn't. But okay. So
That's
like,
absolutely what you did.
you guys are just making the case against asylum in general. Like you're basically
Purpose
making the
of
case that we
asylum
should never
laws-
grant asylum anytime anywhere because then people are going to want to come here and do the thing and blah, 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 you know,
Purpose?
like yes, okay. So
Purpose of asylum laws is for people who are seeking who have suffered from persecution or fear that they will suffer persecution due to race, religion, nationality, member of a particular social group, or political opinion,
Mhm.
not because they've been raped. And I have extreme
people
empathy
fleeing
for people who have
sexual
been raped.
violence under the current laws, you can come here and that can be an asylum claim.
Race,
as far as I
If you
understand.
religion,
If you would give me 15
nationality,
seconds,
member
I
of
could
a
answer this.
particular social
Okay.
group, political opinion.
Okay, we're gonna
Not
toss
one
it
of
to
the
all.
reasons.
we're
You
gonna-
don't know shit about asylum.
Okay, we are going to toss it to Rob, or he's going to have an aneurysm. So we're going to toss it to Rob. We're going to let him go. We're going to let people respond to Rob, and then we're going to see where we're at. I think Josiah does have to switch out soon, and so
About
we're gonna-
20 minutes.
we do have a replacement for him, but yeah.
Okay,
ahead.
I can answer this question quickly. We'll take Hutch. Hutch, let's say you go on vacation in Germany and you're sexually assaulted. Do you get to claim asylum in France?
What are these fucking hypotheticals, Rob? What are you talking about? What
If
is this
you're
got to do with what
incapable-
we're talking
if-
about right now? I
If
would
you're
just go
incapable,
home. Like, what do you
the
mean?
Right.
Well, go back to the United States.
Where would you go?
I would go back to the United States, but the United States, the circumstances here in the United States are not going to be the same as in like Guatemala or El Salvador or Nicaragua or something like that.
That's the point, you morons, right? The point is this. If they had a legitimate reason for an asylum claim at their back home country, then they have a legitimate asylum claim. If they didn't,
claims to
please let me finish. If they didn't, and then they get raped in Mexico trying to get to the United States, no, they don't get asylum to get into the United States then, because they would go back to their country of origin.
Okay. Let me just ask you guys, do you guys believe in asylum at all? Just at all?
Well, now that we've deflected to a different question, I will answer that as well. Right. I do not believe that my people on my side can say what they want. I think, unfortunately, we should deny all asylum claims because people on your side have exploited the system grotesquely, which is leading to increased sexual assaults, increased human trafficking, and you don't give a shit. For example, we used to hear how from Joe Biden himself and Kamala Harris, it was a human rights abuse when we had kids in cages under Trump. Then under Biden, we had 4 times more kids in cages. No longer did they give a shit. You know what they said? Well, go ahead. I'll leave you. Why was it different? Why was the kids in cages different? Go ahead. Anyone can answer on the left. Go for it.
There was a lot of misunderstanding going on at the time and double standards that were being applied to the Trump administration. You're right about that. There was a famous image going around of detention facility, and a picture was taken in like 2014, and people trying to pass it around like it was happening under Trump. The big arguments that I saw from my side when it came to Trump's immigration policy was the family separation thing. That was the thing that like turned the most heads. Actually, like literally kidnapping kids and separating from their families.
That's not what happened.
That's not what happened.
That's not what happened.
Of course, it's what happened.
Not what happened. That is a lie. That is a lie. What happened is kids were coming with people, and we were finding out they weren't their parents, and they were getting sex trafficked. That was exactly what. But you clearly don't know, and you're clearly just talking liberal talk.
Listen, I understand. We live in totally different universe. We live in totally different.
Yeah, I live by the border. I live by the border. My family works with the
and
people.
That gives you expertise.
Yes,
you living in close proximity. That makes you a fucking expert on this stuff.
It actually does. When I'm living by the border and we have people in my family dealing with this issue on a regular basis, working at these centers, trying to actually help these people, and you're going to sit here and go, oh, no, that didn't happen. What really was happening, what we were finding out in droves.
As someone who lives next to a fire station, right? I'm going to try to put this fire out, right? I'm very expert on this.
We do got to
go one at a time.
That is drilling in you, I suppose.
That is a false equivalency. Like, I have family that is working at these centers trying to help immigrants.
That does not make you an expert.
I've employed immigrants my entire career.
Does not make you an expert by
osmosis, it absolutely does. I've employed immigrants my whole career. I have this is you trying to like ignore facts and try to make me seem less credible when I actually do know the issue. And when I'm sitting here and I'm seeing people reporting that, oh, these children are not with their parents and they are being sex trafficked, and we're separating them for a short period of time to find out if they are their parents, that is a good thing.
They still haven't reunited hundreds of these kids with their parents, but they didn't get kidnapped, right? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Gibbs is right, and I think I can explain it to you. How did the law come about that required detaining children? Do you know?
Which law? Can you be more specific about what you're talking about right now?
When under Obama, they started detaining children on their own. Why did that happen?
Are we talking about unaccompanied minors right now?
No, when Obama was in office, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the most liberal circuit, ruled that you could no longer detain children at the border with adults because of what Gibbs is talking about. Because you're putting people in cages, and the court argued that you don't know if that's their parents. So to put them in what's tantamount to a jail cell next to adults could lead to sexual abuse. And so the Ninth Circuit Court said, you can't detain. Now, what the left wanted was, oh, well, then if an adult comes with a child, we have to let them both through. But what Obama set the precedent and did was, no, we're going to detain the adult and we're going to detain the child. And that's how kids in cages started. And so that's
While
how
he vet-
family separation under
While he-
Obama.
no.
Yes,
This is not the
absolutely
same
what
thing.
happened.
This is
That
not.
is exactly
absolutely
what
what
happened.
Trump's former Secretary of Defense, then Chief of Staff John Kelly, went on a fucking talk show and just straight up said, "We're going to do family separation to disincentivize people from trying to come to the border." You guys are saying that this is actually just Obama's policy.
It's family separation.
You're saying Obama did the family started
family
the family separation policy?
Started under Obama.
Then why did John Kelly say that they're introducing this new policy to disincentivize people from coming to the border? How do you
I would
explain
love
that?
to see.
Why
I would
do you-
love to
why
see
do
the
you have a
policy. I
problem?
think that you're probably misquoting him. I don't know that he said it was a new policy. Maybe
Why
they
do you-
said they would step it up or something. Like, please let me finish, Gibbs.
I'll put it
Maybe
in the
that's
chat.
what he
I'll
said.
put it in the chat.
Yeah,
Let me find
you
it now.
Put it in, right? But I'm telling you, this court ruling happened under Obama because lefties thought this would be a cool way to have open borders, and even Obama said no. The other problem with what you're saying is it is grotesque to assume that, oh, the only problems with kids in cages were that they were separated from their father or their mother. But the act of detaining children
didn't
is,
say that,
please,
but-
let me finish. That's
Yeah,
what you
okay.
said the argument was. You said the argument from people on your side was the problem was the family separation. So tantamount,
That
this
was
is
the big
what's
one,
being,
yes.
so this is what those people are saying. So
Hmm.
when Biden said having kids in cages is a human rights abuse, he didn't mean actually having kids in cages. You see the left do this a lot. We can't take his actual words.
Straw man so
No,
many
I'm
like
not-
you.
I'm
guys.
not-
Hold on,
I'll
hold
add
on,
one more
hold on.
thing.
We gotta
I'll
let
add
Hutch
one more
respond.
thing to that.
We gotta let Hutch respond. Hutch, respond.
I didn't even finish my point.
Just a few months into Trump's presidency, then Secretary Kelly confirmed that the administration was considering a hardline approach to illegal immigration that would include separating children from their families if they cross the southern border illegally.
And why was that? Why
This
was that?
a
Hold on.
Trump policy.
That's fake
Why-
news.
he told you why they did it. He told you. He said,
That
we're
doesn't-
doing this to disincentivize them. We want to
Two
send a
things.
message, don't come. And
two
they
things.
did that by kidnapping kids.
Two things I want to address on that. One, it did start under Obama because there was the sex trafficking incidents, and there was a major thing that happened, right? So that was one of them. That was a big one. Now, I will say Trump and them did do that. However, there was a very good thing when the guy who was in charge, I can't remember his name, under Congress was asked, why did you do this? And he said, if you get a DWI and break a law in the United States, do you get to stay with your children? No. If you are a parent and you do cross the border illegally, you have broken a law. You don't get to sit here and have family time with your children. You have broken a law, and these are two separate things that both put children in separation from their parents, allegedly. But I have a question for you. Why would you not want to separate these children from potential abusers and at least ask some questions to make sure that they weren't getting diddled? Do you like kids getting diddled?
Whoa! What are we doing? I was looking at this fact check someone was giving me. Huh?
Dude.
So
I mean,
on
I'm
that
saying
note,
they're advocating for
so
kids
on-
to get diddled.
on that note, I was trying to find
I
a
just had a quick
replacement.
question. I have a quick
Yeah.
question that's essentially the same question. To the lefties, what would you do to families who come to the border?
You would have
need
to
to be-
certainly, you would have to, like, I'm sure I don't want to speak for you guys. I've been speaking a lot. You go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I think they need to be kept together, but I'm gonna give my outro and then dip because it's 8:30. So
Does it not bother you that 1/3 to 1/4 out of the women who come here are SA'd? So potentially a large portion of those kids would be trapped with their abuser, their coyote, while they're in those cages.
I'll let the man
As
do
you
his
guys put
outro.
them?
He said he's got to do his
No,
outro.
well, you can answer that in your outro, but yeah,
outro.
Josiah does have to go. We have gone overtime.
Yeah.
Josiah,
So-
please, you have the floor. Go ahead.
I just saw the hat.
Okay.
I just wonder why he left. Yeah. So listen, I appreciate the conversation. It definitely went off into a gazillion different directions as I expected. These panels often do, and I contributed to it. But I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was a relatively good faith conversation with Lauren, Rob, and Gibbs. And I appreciate the good faith that we were able to have. I do think the question of, what Donald Trump's influence on the Republican Party and the country as a whole, I think that if there was any possible way to like strictly regulate that conversation, I think it's definitely worth pursuing. All the other stuff that we talked about, the border, Trump's track record compared to Biden's, all that stuff matters too. But I think that there's a degree of separation in all of this. For me, I kind of end where I began, which is that I think Donald Trump is ultimately going to prove to be corrosive to the Republican Party as a body and to the country as well. I think, the evidence is plainly clear. He's a malignant narcissist. And so somebody like that, wielding the amount of influence that he does, it's incredibly dangerous. And we're seeing that other Republicans, lifelong Republicans, people who were more consistently Republican and consistently conservative, both with their rhetoric and their actions, far longer than Donald Trump, because I don't think Donald Trump's a conservative, right? I think that he's looking for whichever body can aggrandize him the easiest. We're seeing those Republicans, people like Ken Buck and Mitch McConnell, being pushed out. Now, you might say for good reason, fair enough, but these, again, are lifelong conservatives and lifelong Republicans. I don't see a long-term future for the GOP. I think fundraising and elections are important because if the GOP is going to have any sort of future, they have to win elections. They need fundraising to do it, and it's not going well for this party. As far as like the spiritual component, again, I think he's mutating the GOP into a cult of personality, and I don't think that there's an effective check against it because I think people who criticize Trump and try to keep him in check, they get bullied out of the party. They get targeted by him. And he's made it abundantly clear that in a second term, he has no interest in tolerating those dissidents, even less tolerance than he did the first time around. Awesome. That's incredibly dangerous. I'd love to hear, somebody say how they're going to do that, how they're going to simultaneously benefit from Trump's presence while also curtailing him and his excesses and keeping him from, just mutating the Republican Party into a complete cult of personality.
Josiah, where can people
That's
find
my
you?
opinion. You can find me at youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics. Appreciate the conversation, people, and I'm sure I'll be talking with all of you again. And by the way, Gibbs, The Rise of Skywalker is the best Star Wars sequel. Just want to put that out
You
there.
motherfucker, you.
Oh,
Just
no.
dipping on that note, throwing a grenade, and then walking away. Okay, see you
Yeah,
later,
we'll talk
Josiah.
about it
Thank
later.
you again for
See you
coming on. I
guys.
really appreciate you.
doesn't-
Bye-bye.
He doesn't mean
Okay, back to
At least he didn't say The Last Jedi.
while we have a moment, let me get through these super chats. $2 from Alex Kirsch Project. Any Collins Wick? Probably not tonight. $2 from Testicle Johnson. Happy International Women's Month. I am an ally. Thank you. $5 from Testicle Johnson. Show me in the Constitution where it says a dog can't play baseball. Thank you. $5 from Testicle Johnson. Do you support eating babies? Yes or no? Thank you. $5 from Skilltree Gaming. Balanced immigration based off on our needs and what is good for the existing middle class is the best approach, in my opinion. Thank you for the $5. Okay, with that, back to the discussion. Did everyone answer Lauren's question? I am very curious.
I also have to give an outro, guys. I'm leaving as well. I have
If we're just gonna, we can actually, you know what? This is probably a good time.
We could just end it right here.
Yeah, I would love to stay in chat, but I like have a previous obligation.
I get you. Admiral, give your outro. Where can people find you?
I'm Admiral Gibbs. You can find me everywhere as Admiral Gibbs. I like to stream. We do politics, gaming, and a lot of shenanigans. Good stuff. Thanks to Wick for having me. This is always fun. Remember, a vote for Democrat is a vote for evil. A vote for Republican is a vote for America. That's the secret. And thanks for having me.
No, thanks, gang. Go check him out. He's a great guy. Really appreciate you. Yeah, at this point, I think we're just going to do some outros. It's been a robust discussion, and we will have more. There's been a lot of stuff brought up tonight that I think deserves further critique and further exploration. One of the things that I would like to do at some point is have a conversation on moderation versus extremism and bipartisanship, because a lot of the answers on bipartisanship, I thought, from both sides, I thought were just dog shit. So I want to talk about that. What do I got coming up? So tomorrow's call-ins, and then Monday I'm going to have a show on the TikTok ban. No Opinion is interested in joining us. We're also going to have Brianna Wu and Christina Warren, I think is her name, film girl from YouTube. Should be fun. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. But with that, I want to give the floor over to Hutch for his closing statements, and we'll go through and we'll end with Rob. Will have the last word. So go ahead, Hutch.
You don't need that.
Yeah, listen. Things we get a little animated from time to time, but I do appreciate my conservative counterparts coming on and having this discussion, and I'd be interested in having more discussions with you guys as the election year progresses. You can find me at Hutchinson on Twitter, at Hutch on Twitch. I don't really do YouTube much, so thanks for having me on, Wick, and it was nice to meet you as well.
Okay, thank you for being here, and gang, check him out. You know who he is. Go give him a follow. Lauren De La Laguna, what you got? Oh,
hear
you
you.
got muted. No one can hear you.
The goons got her. Hillary
Oh,
and Bill's
damn.
got her.
There
Okay.
we go.
You can find me on X, previously known as Twitter. You could find me on Instagram and on Twitch and on YouTube. That's my primary platform. And yeah, my name is Lauren De Laguna, DeLaguna. And I really appreciate Wick for having me back. And I'd love to have any further conversations with anyone who wants in the future.
No, thank you. Give her a follow, gang. She's great. Really appreciate you. Next up, Rashad Crenshaw, please.
Oh, I mean, I'm thankful for this conversation. Glad to be on here with Rob. Rob, he gave amazing pushback and went hard on the Ukraine thing, and just glad to be able to come on here and have that conversation with everybody. A lot of the domestic policy stuff I was very, very lost on, so I need to brush up on that. But overall, great conversation, and would love to have it again.
Beautiful, gang. Give him a follow. He's one of my favorite up-and-comers, gang. If I may show a little favoritism, I really like Rashad. I like his style. I like his content. Go give him a follow. Last, but certainly not least, Rob Noor, please.
Thanks. No, I appreciate the show as well. I'll give my overarching thoughts on the topic briefly. Yeah, I think there are two separate questions here. I will concede that because I think a lot of the establishment Republican Party doesn't want to concede to potential outsiders, that they aren't happy, and the old guard Republican, particularly the donor classes, aren't happy with Trump, or even people that are more in line with populism like Ron DeSantis or Vivek. They don't like that. They want to go back to the old George Bush uniparty that's basically indifferent. In fact, particularly in foreign policy, I challenge people, do this little fun exercise. Don't look at the dates, but go back and look at an examples of foreign policies from 2006 to 2012 and see if you could guess when Bush ended and Obama began. It's almost indecipherable. Their policies, it was basically just an extension of Bush's term. So I understand the uniparty wants that. As far as driving the country in a better direction, it absolutely is. Most of the complaints that people had about Trump policy-wise, I think we handily win most of those in the context of this debate. And I think the country is just objectively better when Trump was there, other than when Biden's there now. And I have good reasons to believe that both Trump and Biden are largely responsible for why those things are occurring that way. I think that saying that you're happy Ukraine got invaded is fucking horrible. It's a horrible policy to have, but whatever. But I do enjoy the debate. I know I could be fiery. I appreciate everyone dealing with that. I thought the moderation was fine. Enjoyed talking to everyone here. Would be happy to do so again. You find me at Rob Noor or Normal America with Rob Noor. I stream almost every weeknight on basically all platforms. YouTube, Twitch probably works best. Thanks for having me, Wick, and thank you, everyone.
Oh, thanks again for coming. Remember, tune in tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. We're just going to do call-ins. It's going to be easy day for me after all this, right? Easy day for me. And then next week, we got some great stuff coming up on Monday with the TikTok ban, and we got some other things coming up. Are you going to be streaming after this, Rob Noor?
I'll stay on a little. I'm going on Timcast Friday, so I'm going to talk a little about going on Timcast.
We'll so we're going to rate out on YouTube to Speak Easy, and then we're going to rate out on Twitch to Rob Noor, and that's how we're going to do it. Gang, I will see you guys tomorrow. Wait, bye, everyone.
Thanks, Wick. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
I'm
Bye.
going to move over here, so.